I'm a brainwashing and interrogation expert who spent 20 years in the military, trained intelligence agencies, later on became a neuroscientist, and is regarded as the #1 human behavior expert in the world.
There's a formula that I used to teach for actual brainwashing, and it works the same to brainwash ourselves out of behavior.
In this episode, we dive into how to read anyone and uncover the true motivations, how to spot a lie and get them to reveal the truth, how your personality shows up in the shape of your face, a miracle compound that he takes to heal his brain, and how to brainwash yourself before the world does it for you. So put on your seatbelts, let's get into it.
Being on the behavior panel, you've looked at countless cases where you analyze human beings, whether they're lying or not, whether they've abducted or killed their own children. Yeah. What's the most fascinating or chilling case that you remember that you analyzed? Kathy. And it was the true embodiment of what a psychopath is. And she had her parents murdered and her little brother, who was a child. And her boy, she convinced her boyfriend to do all this. And the boyfriend was not a psychopath. No, I think he was just super suggestible, and she knew how to pull all those.
It's just really into her.
Yeah, and Dr. Phil interviewed her, and you could see those eyes, and I've studied psychopathy for a long time, but I never felt it until that video where you could just feel that's not a human being almost. Like there's no human in there. That's a wild creature that views a human being the same as throwing away a paper cup.
So you just see through the behavior of human beings, little signs in their behavior, in their facial expressions, in their tone, the words they use, whether someone is a psychopath or whether someone's lying, whether someone's concealing information. What did you see in her that gave that away? And I mean, what can we look for?
The horrifying truth is that you can't spot a psychopath until after they've done something like that. So you could have the 50 best behavior profilers in the world, the top 50, and 99% we would be inaccurate in predicting who is a psychopath and who's not. They're so hard to spot. I teach a course for women on how to spot narcissists on a first date. And that's a lot easier. Where if you ask them about an ex-relationship, everything is someone else's fault. They're always the victim. Narcissists will never have friends that are local. They'll never have local people that are their friends. They're always out of town. My friends are in another city. So they have a hard time maintaining relationships. So you'll see a lot of that. And it's like the #1 trend. And you'll see very similar things with psychopaths. And psychopaths are attracted to large cities. In my analysis, Dr. Robert Hare has done most of the research on psychopaths. In my analysis, I think that cities are not just attracting psychopaths, I think that cities are helping to manufacture them. In the book I have coming out, I have a chapter in there called Psychopath Factories, where I talk about the elements of a city and how it manufactures psychopathy.
There wasn't psychopathy before, or at least not to the same extent, and it breeds that, it increases that?
I think it does. Let's talk about one thing that'll make sense right away. You've heard of the bystander effect, right? So for your listeners, what this means is if I'm in a big city like New York or something like that, and I get hurt and I'm laid on the ground and I'm wounded and I'm begging for help, the more people that are around me, the less likely I am to get help. Like people will take pictures, they'll take videos. They all assume that somebody else is going to call 911, but they'll stand there and watch. So if I took this behavior in isolation and I told you a story about a person watching another person get stabbed and they stand there and watch, they watch in interest, you would call that person a psychopath. When you get into a large city, that behavior is common. That is the bystander effect, is the behavior of psychopaths. So us not relying on reputation, and we're not in a tribe anymore. Our brains are not wired to handle millions of people. They're wired to handle a tribe of about 150. So when we get to a big city, we have no capacity for empathy for that many people. So it gets shut off. Our brains say, I can't do that. And empathy goes away. That's why we're in LA right now. We're driving around. We just got off the freeway. We shared a car here together. People are bad drivers because there's no reputation. You're never going to see those people again. I don't have to rely on reputation. That means I don't care what other people think. So more psychopathy. I think psychopathy is a spectrum. And some people view it as a diagnosis of you have to fit this checklist of all these things to be a psychopath. You can get close, right? Which means that there's a line, there's some kind of a spectrum there.
So what is it that you saw in that case that made it that specifically the most frightening, chilling, fascinating case for you?
The way that she recounted it was the same way that if I described picking up broccoli at a grocery store. That's how she described all of that and the horror that happened. She burned the house down afterwards, or her boyfriend did. But she made sure to rescue her dog. And she was holding this dog while her boyfriend did all this. And you could see zero emotion on her face. And you could see these little defense mechanisms. She's a teen, I think, at the time. These little defense mechanisms that she built throughout her life of looking innocent at Dr. Phil with these little innocent eyes. And knowing that her looking like an innocent little girl was a learned, deceptive, calculated behavior is horrifying to me.
Wow. So psychopaths, you can't spot them because they're so good at imitating certain behaviors?
They're very good at it.
Wow.
But one of the best ways to start, and I'm never going to say like, here's the list and how to do that, because if anyone tells you they're like, here's the way to spot a psychopath, they're full of it. But you can start spotting a psychopath by looking at a person's face and seeing if they mirror your expressions. If I'm saying something exciting and it's cool, see how your eyebrows just went up, right?
Yeah.
That's called an eyebrow flash reflex.
I'm not a psychopath. I swear.
As far as you know. So if I'm saying something sad, like my aunt I got put in the hospital or something like that, you see somebody's face kind of fall a little bit. You're seeing a mirrored emotion in other people's face. Sometimes psychopaths don't know how to react. So you'll either see a lack of affect, where their face has no reaction to it, or you're going to see an inappropriate response. So they'll smile on accident because they're trying to fake an expression. And if I want to tell you, let me put you in the mind of a psychopath really quick. And this is a story from Dr. Hare. So I want you to imagine you live in a big city and you go down and you say, I'm going to go get some fried chicken. And I walk down and it's 2 blocks away. And you're walking to the fried chicken place and you're walking by a car accident. And a mom is bleeding out of her head. She's holding her infant that's dying in her arms. It would make anybody cry. It's horrifying. Just me even talking about the simulated situation has been making me emotional. But you walk by the situation and you stare at it for about a minute or 2 minutes. You look at the people around, and in your head you're going, fried chicken. That's it. You go pick up your fried chicken, you go home, and you stare at your face in the mirror going like this, trying to mimic all the facial expressions that you just saw from the crowd that was observing this accident.
That is so freaky.
Yeah.
That is a movie scene you just described. If there's any directors out there who want to make a video about a movie about a psychopath, this is the scene that you see.
Yeah.
So I'm not really afraid of psychopaths in my life. I've never encountered one. Probably, what's the percentage?
I'm not sure. 100%.
By them to the point where I'm like, I need to learn about it. However, anyone listening, I have intimate relationships, business partnerships, people I do business with, people I get close to, family members, right? So what can do to spot certain patterns in them that we should be aware of, or how to quit on someone.
Not for psychopathy, right?
To realize whether they're trustworthy, whether they're telling the truth, whether they're authentic.
The fastest way to read a human being question in your head. It is, what does this want me to feel about them and notice? Number one. So what do they want me to notice about them? And that's going to show you some kind of a mask. I'm not talking about a COVID mask, but I'm talking about like a persona that I put onto the world. And the way that I teach this to military and government is the mask is made up of the things that this person built to conceal shame.
Conceal, and shame is what we put on when we feel like we're not enough.
Yeah, shame is, I shouldn't have done that. I'm a bad person for doing that. I need to hide it. And not agreeing with something in our past or something that we're ashamed of. And shame today is institutionalized. It's a public weapon to use shame. You can just log into Twitter and you'll see it in 30 seconds. You'll see how shame is being weaponized. So shame creates cognitive dissonance, which is a mental discomfort. Mental discomfort says, I don't want to be this uncomfortable in front of people. That creates a mask. So we wear these personas and these masks cover up something. So if you see somebody, 90%, 99% of us have a mask. And this is the population of Earth. How thin it is, how thick it is, that's what changes and what the mask is made of. So if I'm seeing somebody who's acting like he's posturing all the time, he's yelling, he's like just puffing his chest out, the mask is usually the opposite of what it's concealing. So I'm seeing a fearful little boy that's afraid of being hurt.
A chihuahua.
Yeah, I'm seeing a chihuahua that's barking, and if I bark enough, no one's going to hurt me. And that's what I'm really seeing there. That's what a mask is.
And then I guess another factor is how open or vulnerable are they with just revealing that they do wear a mask? Because I think some people, they're just like, yeah, I do wear a mask.
Yeah.
And this is my mask.
Yeah. And if somebody's willing to talk about it and be open about it. And the second thing that I'm looking for is somebody's level of self-control every time. So what does their mask look like? What do they want me to believe? So when I was raising my kids, they were 7, 8, 9 years old. We'd pull up to a stoplight and there'd be a car in front of us covered in bumper stickers. I would tell my son or my daughter, what do you think those bumper stickers are trying to say if they had a voice? And it would be like, I did Yosemite and there's a marathon thing. Like I go fishing, like all kinds of crazy stuff. And my daughter would go, I'm adventurous. I said, all right, what does that mean to other people though? Okay, what else? It means I'm, okay, what else? It means I'm a good friend. What else? What does that mean? I'm lonely. And like going on, that's just one data point. I'm not saying that every time. But if you start going down this rabbit hole of understanding human behavior, the better you get at understanding humans, the more that you're going to see loneliness, shame, and suffering. It's every human being. So the way that I deal with loneliness, concealed shame, and kind of anesthetize myself from suffering are equals human behavior.
Some other common masks that you see. You have the puffing out the chest. You have the, oh, look, I'm so fun.
Yeah, I'm friendly and fun.
Be my friend.
Yeah.
I don't want to be alone. What else is there?
There's a lot. And there's the, let's call it, keep in mind is anybody that gets close needs to be reminded that this is too close. I don't want anybody in my intimate space. So my mask is I need to keep people away. And it's different than the Chihuahua because I'll let people get close. I'm not barking all the time. They'll get hurt when they get close to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's different ways that we wear our masks. Mask is let's call it a baby. I deal with conflict by rolling over and looking. I'm using innocence as a way to do things. And if you want to understand human behavior formula that you will ever get, as far as I'm concerned, So this is my opinion. Here's the most perfect formula for human behavior that I think will ever explain a human being. I want to find out how this person reacts to conflict and how they make friends and how they socialize. Because every human being is a product of how, when they were 8 or 9 years old, how they earned friends, gained rewards, and kept themselves safe. What did I do to be safe? All of those, we have something called the childhood development triangle. Maybe you can throw it up on the screen. But what did I do to earn friends, earn rewards, and sometimes rewards are recognition. In a really bad environment, sometimes the reward is water. And then the third is, what did I do to feel that we're not us ever knowing we care that adult? So I'm seeing childhood behaviors in every how they conflict. That's what worked at 8 or 9. 8 or 9 number of those formative developmental years.
So there's, who do they want me to think? What do they want me to think about them?
What do they want me to notice?
What do they want me to notice? Self-control. What does that mean?
So I will look at somebody and measure their level of discipline. And you need no training for this. So if you and I were seated in the middle of an airport together, and I said, show me somebody who has a lot of discipline in their life, you could see a high degree of self-control. You'd be able to spot somebody. Anybody listening right now would be able to spot somebody with discipline. And that's one of the first things I look at, somebody's degree of self-control. And I know that instantly, even if they're a stranger, they'll be more predictable in a good way. Like they're more likely to be trustworthy because they already discipline themselves. They have self-control. So if I know that I'm getting into a business relationship with something with somebody that has self-control problems, and you may see this, some people might think that that's somebody being overweight and they might have some self-control issues. Then I'm just a little more cautious. It's not that I'm not going to do it. It's just I know to be a little cautious about any indicators of low self-control.
So if you're looking for a business partner, somebody who's fit, looks healthy, takes care of themselves. I mean, it seems obvious, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's easy to overlook that. I guess it's the same thing with an intimate partner, right?
Yeah. And one of the fastest ways to estimate this for ourselves is one of the ways that I ask my clients on the survey. One of the questions on my client surveys is, what would a stranger rate my diet on a 1 to 10 scale? Just by looking at me from 10 yards away. How would a stranger rate what I eat every day? Is it good or bad? And that's a pretty good way to start that off. And just thinking about it in my own life or your own life, is what kind of self-control am I projecting to the world?
Mm-hmm. What's your read on my mask?
Your mask is, I need to be harmless. And so you have more of a puppy mask. And that's how you dealt with conflict at the age of 8 or 9, is I'm going to be more and more innocent. And I'm going to use innocence to solve this problem. I'm going to stay out of conflict. If I can kind of just be nice and kind, let's just everybody become friends with each other really quick, as fast as possible.
Yes, I think that's very accurate. One of the things we talked about yesterday as well. How do I get out of that? Because I have a side of me that's, when that comes out, do not want to get in my way.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm afraid of that part. But it comes out in moments where it's necessary. But my first go-to is be kind. How would you approach something like that? Somebody notices their mask, whatever it might be.
You need to get in touch with whatever the opposite of that mask is. So for yours, it would be becoming harmful. And I am not a violent person. Would you agree? I'm a pretty chill dude.
Mm-hmm.
But I am better at violence than probably most people that you know. So I'm excellent at violence. That does not make me harmless. It makes me do no harm. So I think that once you get familiar and intimately familiar with whatever the opposite of the mask that we wear is, we get to a point where we no longer need the mask to cover things up.
That's so fascinating because as you're talking about this, I feel like with certain people, I am humble, gentle.
Yeah.
Whereas I think there's a bunch of people, and I told you this before in the previous episode, there's a lot of people who found me intimidating. And when I'm around them, you can just sense that I find myself being gentle on purpose to make them comfortable.
Yeah.
Masks depending on who we're interacting with, right?
I think that's the same mask though. I need to become softer so that I soften to solve problems. And that's kind of what that is. Like, yeah, I'm softer. And for somebody that wears that mask on a regular basis, they're going to say, well, that's how we solve problems. Like, I'm not going to be me not wearing this mask means that I'm this. Not a spectrum. They view like, if I don't do this, they have to be a dick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But there's a way to deal with conflict in a very direct way and very confident dealing with it. And it's not a dick. No. So
sounds like if you're a Chihuahua who's barking a lot and you're puffing your chest,
yeah,
you actually listen.
Yeah.
If you're a puppy
until I was 24, I was a Chihuahua.
Okay. And if you're a puppy who's like, oh, look how nice I am, then you're actually a dick.
Yeah.
It's just okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I have that side of me where I'm like very impatient. I can be very impatient with people, and I hit the brakes. I'm like, it's fine, kindness,
Yeah.
But I have that like. So, and I guess embracing that, making peace with that dark side.
Yeah, and that was, talking about this and like getting familiar with our shadow. I think if we do that and we know our problem for most people,
yourself first. Don't look around. See. The shadows. Crazy, crazy.
One of the most psychologically destabilizing experiences a narcissist can endure is the collapse of the narrative they've constructed about themselves and their place in your life. This isn't just a blow to their pride, it's a seismic fracture in their very identity structure. See, narcissism, as most people understand it, they live within a kind of psychological theater, one where they're always the central character, the one who matters most, the one around whom all others revolve. But that narrative is fragile. It only works if everyone else agrees to play their part. And for a time, you probably did. Perhaps not willingly, perhaps still. You explained, defended, you rationalized their behavior, minimized your needs, or endured their unpredictable emotional. Something would finally shift. But over time, something shifted in you. You see, the narrative depends entirely on control, emotional, perceptual control, even control over the definition of truth in the relationship. When it suits them, they downplay your pain, amplify their wounds, and twist logic until it becomes a tool for dominance rather than dialogue. And all of it feeds one central aim: to maintain the illusion that they are irreplaceable, powerful, and always one step ahead. But the illusion only lasts as long as you agree to see it as truth. The moment you stop participating in that delusion, begin to see through the manipulations and respond not with anger, judgment, that's when it all begins to unravel. Not necessarily, it may not be loud, but it's devastating moment, not just walking away physically. You're withdrawing psychologically. Someone who built their identity on external affirmation, your silence becomes existentially threatening. Now, this isn't just a personal betrayal in their eyes, it's a symbolic one. Your departure signals something they've worked hard to conceal, that the story they've been telling about who they are and how others perceive them is fiction. That realization doesn't occur instantly. It creeps in, often masked by rage or indifference or another round of blame shifting. But beneath that surface defensiveness is the quiet terror that maybe, just maybe, they've been wrong about who they are all along. And it's here that we must touch on something that's psychologically complex, the relationship between identity and narrative. We are, in many ways, storied creatures, ourselves through narrative. We know who we are, done, who we've loved, what we've endured. And that's written on truth, but on fantasy, on reality, on the illusion of control, then it can feel like a death. So what happens when you step out of the role they cast you? They're left with an empty stage. They may scramble to fit, project someone else, trying to recreate the same dynamic with a, but it never works quite the same, because you weren't just another story. You were the one who saw them deeply, perhaps. When someone who truly saw them walk something even more disturbing than abandonment, the idea that the story itself was never the space left behind isn't just loneliness, it's disorientation. They don't know who they are with their life, because your presence, paradoxically, gave their, and now your absence, the precise moment their grand narrative begins to collapse. Not just because you left, but because you left without needing them to understand why. You exited the stage, not with vengeance, but with dignity. And in doing so, you didn't just end the relationship, you ended the illusion. And that's what makes your silence so powerful. It speaks a truth their ego can't refute. And in that space, the story begins to crack, and the narcissist is left to face the one thing they fear above all else, the truth of who they are without you. Emotional detachment, it sounds deceptively simple, almost clinical. But in the realm of narcissistic dynamics, it's a profoundly subversive act, because emotional detachment isn't the absence of feeling. It's the mastery of it. It's what happens when you stop reacting, when your emotions are no longer leveraged, manipulated, or used against you. And when a narcissist sees that they no longer have access to your inner world, that's when they begin to lose control in the most meaningful way. Now, narcissism, that would be too shallow an interpretation. They want something far more intimate. Your emotional engagement. Your highs, your lows, your frustration, your despair, your hope. Every reaction you offer serves as proof that they still matter to you. Even your anger, even your tears, these are signs to them that the cord hasn't been cut. You're still tethered. And if you're still tethered, they can still pull the strings. That's what makes your emotional detachment so threatening. It's not just that you've walked away, it's that you've walked away no longer triggered. You're no longer seeking their validation. You're no longer bending yourself into emotional contortions to maintain the illusion of harmony. You've begun to respond rather than react. And in doing so, you've reclaimed something the narcissist was never entitled to in the first place: your sovereignty. Clear, this isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. That's not detachment, that's numbness. And numbness, while sometimes necessary, still implies unresolved pain. True detachment is different. It's an act of psychological clarity. You see the narcissist who they are, not who they pretend to be, and not who you hope they could become. You stop projecting your empathy onto them, and instead you begin to observe, not with judgment, not with bitterness, just with precision. And this, interestingly enough, is when the narcissist often makes their most desperate attempts to reel you back in. They might become more charming, more apologetic, more self-aware. They might suddenly remember your worth or pretend to, but it's not a genuine epiphany. It's a defense mechanism. What they're really reacting to is the loss of power, because your emotional detachment has upended the equation. It's changed the rules of the game, and for the first time, they're not the ones setting the terms. You'll notice it in the subtle ways. The way they probe for a reaction, the way they test your boundaries or try to evoke guilt, nostalgia, or fear. But when you don't respond, not with hostility, not with pleading, not with hope, they're left with nothing to manipulate. And that for them is terrifying, because it means their control isn't just, it's gone. What we're really talking about here is the psychological process of becoming whole, autonomous, and integrated. Emotion, you're no longer orbiting around someone. You're anchored in your own values. You've taken back the authority to define what's real, what matters, and what's acceptable. And in doing so, you've denied them the one thing they crave most, significance at your expense. It's a profound shift, one that doesn't require confrontation or revenge, just consistency, quiet possession. And the narcissist doesn't know what to do with that, because they're used to worship or abandonment. But indifference, language they speak, that's the one thing they can't spin, can't twist, can't fight. And this is where the transformation truly begins. Not in them, but in you. You're no longer dancing to their rhythm, you're creating your own. And that's when they realize, often too late, that the version of you they tried to control no longer exists. You've evolved, you've ascended, you've rendered their tactics. So when your emotional detachment becomes, it's no longer an act, but a reflection of your actual state, you understand, perhaps for the first time, that the power dynamic has ended, not because you defeated the grand confrontation, but because you no longer needed to, out of trauma. And in doing so, there's something existentially threatening to a narcissist about your independence, not the illusion of being able to pay your bills or handle your schedule, but the deep internal kind of independence, the type that's rooted in a stable identity, in a mature hierarchy of values, in an integrated understanding of who you are and what you stand for. That kind of independence doesn't just irritate the narcissist, it exposes them. And more than anything, narcissists fear exposure, not of their secrets, but of their whole lives. Now, why? Because narcissists are not self-sustaining creatures. Their sense is inflated, brittle, and fundamentally externalized. It requires others, often empathetic, conscientious others, to reflect back a sense of value, status, and identity. Without that reflection, their mask begins to crack. Their carefully curated dissolves. Underneath is something they can't confront. A deep well of shame, inferiority, and confusion. You grow independent, not just functionally, but you become a mirror that doesn't reflect them. You no longer validate their distorted narrative. You no longer react in predictable ways. And in the moment becomes intolerable. Not because, but because you've stopped serving their psychological defense. Think of it this way. Most people with these traits construct a false self to survive. That false self is but it doesn't develop through honest engagement with built to keep the real self hidden. And the real self, the one that's terrified, the one that feels chronically unworthy, the one that was likely neglected or shamed early in life, that self remains away. Now, when someone dependent on external, someone who's no longer willing to play that game, someone who doesn't fawn, doesn't chase, doesn't need them to feel complete, there's a threat. Not a threat in the violent or aggressive sense. You represent, they've disowned. You reflect a kind of wholeness they don't know. That confrontation with what they lack.
Morning. Hi.
That's
You want to think, you need to the airport. We'll be there in less than 20 minutes. It's okay, it gets cold. I can change it. It's okay, thank you. Got a warm jacket on. It's good weather. I like cold. Yeah. Yeah, because when it's hot, you can't do much. When it's cold, you just put a jacket or.
Oh, that's exactly right. We traveling through New Zealand at the moment, and I'm just here for work for a week. But we live in Amsterdam, so Europe.
Oh, nice, yeah.
It got hot the week before we leave Greece, and it's just too warm. Mate.
Yeah, apparently the Europe in general is getting heat waves.
Yes.
After that, it's meant to be cold. I remember when I was there, it was summer, but it was cool like this. It was not as hot as I'm from Spain, so I used to the 40 degrees.
Yeah.
But there is kind of cool because North Europe is cooler.
Yeah, but also that is.
Wow.
Proud.
The trust, yeah. Last
Ship,
year.
Yeah, you can ship in. Yeah, you can literally ship it.
Yeah. Yeah, last year was restrictions. They have like a 4-minute showers, and
Yes.
everyone like have to force to do 4 minutes shower.
Yeah.
The world is definitely shifting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I do for a lot of work as well. So
Yeah.
we have a device that can be used for drinking water.
Mhm.
Catch your shower water and use it to flush toilet and do your laundry. So you
Sweet.
save about 40%.
Nice.
But we meet all these hurdles also in Australia. Marks and scary, and they want to stick to the old stuff.
Yeah.
But climate's changing.
And it's faster than ever, I believe.
It's
Yeah.
faster than ever.
Happening quicker than expected because it was expected, but not this fast. I remember, the COVID, we have before COVID, I think it was before, yeah, that draw that we here, and they start a machine in Botany that is the salt water for,
Yeah, the desalination.
and that one was broken. So they fixed more what they were doing than actually just get out. And, yeah, the investment was more expensive than actually.
So we are actually working with Sydney, also running pilots with our machines. So I'm right now, and I'm driving out to Bloomer because they're putting in one there as well. So it's all pilot based because they don't want to certify it yet. So yeah, it's an interesting developments. It's scary, right?
Yeah, indeed. I think we should be prepared for everything in general, and I noticed that we just go with the flow, and when it happens, well, we fix it.
Yeah, I mean, we wait until we know it's going to happen, but we wait until it's really shit hits the fan, and then we act. And then it always costs more.
Costs more, yeah. It's more expensive.
Oh.
It's like buying cheap stuff that it's cheap, that you end up paying double, or even buying the expensive one at the end.
Yeah. Quick fixes.
Quick fixes are the worst because they give you a sense of security. It doesn't last. Society we live in is instant gratification society. So everyone now for yesterday. And I think good things always take time. Good things
Absolutely.
organize time. It's important to be prepared for things like that.
Yeah, and that's the Chinese doing that, right? They don't look at quick fixes. They look at
They did. They took over the whole world. This is I was talking with a Spanish in Spain, and he told me that we had like cafes and the bars that I was running for the locals. And when I left, was all local. So and it was like a shifting between local. Then he told me after years, man is bought all bars in Spain. Yeah. So they're running all the bars. I think you take things, like
generational wealth instead of
they slowly do things, and now they things like they
be Europeans are like, I want to enjoy life.
more Spanish. That's one thing that we do. We always, tomorrow. That's how I grew up, and I find I've identified. I like to work. I don't hate work. I'm not lazy, but I like I have. For instance, in Europe we have 1 month off. Like you have to. Here it's just you have to work. There is no options to get that month.
I'm also I work 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Because I mean we've got 3 little kids.
Yeah.
And I wanna see them grow up and be a parent and be a parent. But yeah.
Because otherwise you're creating machines.
No, we're humans.
Yeah.
We're actually not made to work 40 hours a week. It's a construct that's in. And we don't need growth.
No, definitely no. More with instant gratification is not gonna work because it's chaos. It's chaos because many people in power will look for that increase that is not possible because, like you say, we have families, we have people to look after. We know machines that we click on working, club cough, on, and we go back. Sleep 7 hours, go back. It's a hamster wheel that is not made for human life. So
And the last thing we need is more stuff.
No, that we don't need.
More cars and more clothes. We've got enough.
Yeah, that's another thing that we have to consume to get, and it's something that's psychological. It's been studied that we naturally compare ourselves with other people. When the other to be part of it.
You can never win.
No, never.
There's always someone with something that you don't.
Yeah, the new iPhone. Oh, you got the new iPhone. I want the new iPhone. I'm left out. Things like that. You bought a new electric car. I want an electric car. That's constantly that's part of the capitalism. But it's normal. I understand, but it's not healthy.
It's not healthy.
I think it ruins so. I think family dies because you focus so much in getting material things that you forget about what is family or what.
You say family dies. The birth rate is now well under what we need to maintain the population. So in because in the Netherlands, a woman gets on average 1.4 babies. And you need 2.1 to sustain the population. I think Korea is 0.6.
Mm-hmm.
So in 24 years, populations are going to drop, and we are immigrants to keep everything running. It's
because that's how the old system worked for them. That's what the boomers left. That was the generation of baby boomers left because that's what they used to do. I remember when I was a kid. Yeah. That's how they took over too. Like the way they have a lot of kids, but at the same time they know those kids are gonna pay what is with retirement now.
Yeah.
And now those kids, they don't need kids, so they have another people that will do the job that come from outside. It's because when you come to this point, it feels like it's something, and I think it's more what if the system works, that, yeah, it's not.
Yeah, because if no one has kids, then there's no kids to look after you when you're older as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing that it wouldn't, in the long term, doesn't work. It works for the moment. It's like the instant gratification, but in the long term, it's just gonna be chaos. And people will lose their mind because in reality, it's not gonna be possible. And I've seen it. It's very sad because I actually experienced that. I live like this city, live not too far from here, and city life is pretty sad because in that way, no one's care about each other. Like the sense of community is gone. So the other day, I was just watching the news, and this couple, they found them dead. They very old. They found death 2 weeks after. They found it because the smell, and it was sad because it's a community there. Like it's people, the postie, the people who drop the post. No one's and that's it. And no one noticed that. When I grew up, people will ask, "Where are you? Where were you been?" You get,
have you seen them?
Yeah.
I haven't seen them.
Everyone is too trapped in their own bubble. So when that happens, it really makes you think. So that can happen to anyone. Like we will be to that point. Until it doesn't happen to you, you don't see the pain. And I see it because I feel it. Like, I can imagine you die and no one's cares, Yeah. And the hard part, one of the difficult part that I've seen it because it's not only one. This is one case recently, but I've seen that happens similar situations, and all the families worry about it is what they're gonna get out of that. It's crazy, and it breaks my heart because it's like that's your parents. Yeah. So that's their parents, and they fighting over things they're gonna get out of that. And I think, man, you didn't care about your parents. They it is, and I think in moderation, balance, right? It's important to have things like
enough.
Like hypocrite of me to say, I hate. I have things that work, and it helps my work to get better. I don't want cheap phone.
As long as it works,
exactly.
Reliable.
Yeah. And I don't look for the little things, and I think that's part of the balance. Once you balance, everything goes smooth.
Once you've got it, just look after it, so it will last a long time.
Yeah.
And then when it breaks, you get all the.
Exactly, yeah. And a second hand, I buy a second. I think that because sometimes some people, but that's important of the cycle too, that the people that buy these last things, the last model, they always left the one before that actually still the same. And you can buy it for cheap because they will sell it for cheap. Yeah. So that's why it's a cycle that is important, but at the same time, once it's unbalanced, that everyone wants the last model, that's when it finishes.
Yeah.
That's when capitalism wins.
Yeah. And loses at the same time.
Yeah, because we all lose. We all gonna be in this. We all the same planet. Like it's not. At the end of the day, when we meet all at the end, we just all finish in the same way.
Yeah.
You left, you're right, you brown, you yellow, all in the same place.
I actually think 24 July, shoot today. So that's in 2 days.
Yeah.
So that when we've used all the resources that the world could sustain.
Yeah.
Then we still have 6 months to go.
It's interesting because there is a clock. I think everything is being calculated. It's almost like it's part of a plan. But the plan is not going as expected because everything is going super fast.
Yeah.
And we're not prepared for many things for that reason because we're so chill about stuff. Yeah. We just wait for when it happens, like you say,
We look at Instagram while the world explodes. Or humanity dies.
But that actually, those Instagram models, they will be realizing that they underpay because they pretend to be models. They might be getting some payment for here and there, but they not really acting as a model, like should be, more like my point is that it's not a contract. So it's something that you will lose. They're temporary,
Yeah.
and everyone will get wrinkle and all. So those dreams and everything, you just vanish, and it's all fake until it happened. The bad things. I don't know if it makes sense that we pretend until something happened. For instance, this is very quick. When I was a kid, it was a road that was very dangerous, almost accidents every day.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything until someone happened die in accident. Yeah. And that's how it is. Until start seeing things happening really bad, it's not going to be stopped. And I think that's wrong. I think we should know that it's going to happen and prepare for that.
Yeah, people have a very bad memory of bad things. Like
Yep.
if there's a drought in South Australia, I'll be there soon with the drought.
Mm.
And now they had the downpour, so the urgency is gone.
Mhm.
So they don't act on it anymore. It's just such short term.
It is short term. We move on with another distraction, and we're great in distractions too. So it's another thing that we only can hope for the best.
Yes. Let's end on that note.
Yeah.
Let's hope for the best.
Let's hope for the best, and all we can do for ourselves is help to get better for everyone. And
Yeah,
I
just
think
look after ourselves
and we all get eventually in the same line,
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
nice to meet you, Nick. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. See you.
Most people come to meditation thinking it's a way to get rid of the ego, that by sitting still, breathing deeply, and calming the mind, it will satisfy that voice in the head which says, I'm doing this, I'm becoming spiritual. But what if I told you that this very attitude is itself the ego playing dress up? You see, the ego doesn't mind being spiritual. It doesn't mind being enlightened. In fact, it rather enjoys the idea, especially if it makes it a little more special than the others. So when someone says, I'm trying to get rid of my ego, it's as if the ego has built itself a halo and now pretends it's not there. But there's something very revealing in that paradox. As I once wrote, getting rid of one's ego is the last resort of invincible egoism. It simply confirms and strengthens the reality of the feeling. The ego loves to divide reality. It says, here I am and there's my breath. Here I am and there is the noise. Here I am and I need to let go. But in doing so, it's subtly reasserting its own presence, as if it were a little man inside the head pulling the levers. That's the great trick. The ego wants to escape itself, but only if it gets to survive the process. And meditation, if misunderstood, becomes just another ego project. Another strategy. Another method for the self to the truth is the ego fix the ego. It cannot transcend itself, cannot see itself directly, or teeth bite them. You cannot jump from your own shadow. That's why we must not at the breath. Not at... Who is that? Who is the you that sits to become peaceful? Can you find it? Can you locate it? Trace it down? Most people, if they look honestly, will find that it slips through their fingers the moment they try to grasp it. The idea of a fixed self, me, that thinks, watches, chooses, is a useful convention, sure. But it's no more real than a wave thinking it is separate from the sea. And meditation, when practiced from the ego's point of view, becomes an attempt to separate the wave from the ocean and take it somewhere better. I will tame my thoughts. I will gain insight. I will be still. But that voice, is part of the movement to control. So the more you try to push away things like a shadow, it plays dead. It pretends to dissolve back in the form of pride, spiritual identity, or suck. Caught yourself thinking, now I'm really meditating, that too. Is the ego satisfied stroking its beard, nodding with approval at its own supposed disappearance? But real stillness isn't an achievement. It's what's always been there underneath the noise. The great trap is that we believe we must do something to arrive. But arrival only happens when we stop trying to get anywhere at all. When we are no longer meditating to anything. When there's no one behind the curtain pulling the strings. Just the breeze through the trees, the sound of the birds, the rise and fall of breath happening on their own. Not being done by you, just being. So the first and most important insight is this: the very effort to transcend the ego is itself the ego's final disguise. And the moment you see that clearly, not intellectually, but viscerally, something shifts, you laugh, you relax, the spell breaks, and suddenly there's no one left inside to be spiritual. There's just this moment, unsupervised, unfiltered, unpossessed. The way the sun shines without an owner, the way the wind moves without permission, there is peace. It's a funny thing, we imagine the more meditation, the better we'll get at it. A skill like playing the piano or improving your golf swing. But meditation is not like that. It is not something you do in order to get somewhere. And the more effort you invest, the more you try, the more you actually block the very thing you're hoping to discover. Because effort is tension. And tension comes from a sense of separation, the idea that there is a me who must control my mind, who must stop thoughts, who must enter the present. But who is this controller? Have you ever caught it in the act? If you try to grasp it, the one who's trying it slips. Doesn't it like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror? I once put it this way: the effort to transform one's own mind should collapse, and along with it the whole illusion that one is a separate center of consciousness to which experience happens and for which these happenings are problematic. That's the heart of it. We have grown so used to thinking of ourselves as something separate from the world, something that is experiences like a little ghost inside the skull. We try to bend reality into shape, quiet the thoughts, soften the heart. But all of that is just more doing. Imagine sitting by a river. The water doesn't need to be improved. It doesn't need to be stopped. It doesn't need to be directed. You simply sit and watch. No effort, no judgment. And yet that is what meditation is meant to be: awareness without interference. Being with what is without needing to mold it, adjust it, or name it. But the moment we say, yes, this is the state I want to maintain, we've already left it. We've turned it into a goal. And now we are chasing shadows. You see, EQ doesn't just want to survive. It wants to improve. It says, I will become a better meditator. It says, I will reach enlightenment. But what is this I that seeks improvement? What is this I that tries to awaken? It's the very illusion that meditation in its essence reveals to be unreal. So rather than trying to fix the mind, what if we simply noticed it? Noticed the thoughts as clouds passing. Noticed the breath as wind moving through the body. Noticed even the effort itself, the clenching, the grasping, and let it be exactly as it is. Don't push it away. Don't fix it. Just let the tension reveal itself. And in that simple act of noticing without effort, without expectation, something magical happens. There's no longer you watching the breath. breath happening. And isn't that what you were seeking all along? Stillness, trying. It is the absence of trying. Peace is not something it's what you uncover when the need to do anything falls away. You don't dig your way into silence with a shovel. You fall into it like not through will, but through surrender. Let it all fall. Let go of the grip. Let go. Let go of even letting go. Just sit, breathe, and let the illusion burn away in the warmth of awareness. To your thoughts, you may begin to notice something strange, that behind the thinking there's a kind of tension, a pressure to manage, to supervise, to control. It's as if somewhere deep inside you feel that without constant monitoring, everything would fall apart. That watcher, that inner supervisor, is what we often call the ego. It's not just a bundle of thoughts or a set of memories. It's the subtle sense that there's a someone inside watching the world, deciding what to do with it, owning the experience. But what if that someone was never really there? You see, the idea of a separate observer is so deeply ingrained that we almost never question it. We just assume there's a me who looks out through the eyes, who hears with the ears, who feels with the body like a little pilot in the control room. But when we really look, what we find is the awareness is not centered anywhere. Head. It's not behind the eye. It has no boundary, no shape, no control. Meditation in its truest form is not about creating a better I. It's a being this story all along. The illusion isn't that you have a personality that's fine, that's natural. The illusion is that there's a fixed central self to which all things happen. That's a core identity who stands apart from life and receives. You sit so still, so present that even the idea of a watcher dissolves. Well, then there is only the watching, only seeing, hearing, breathing without ownership. And when that shift occurs not as a thought but as a felt experience, there is no you looking out. There is just looking. No you listening, only sound. Life reveals itself as a happening, not a possession. In that sense, there's no longer any conflict between the observer and the observed, no gap to close, no friction between the world and the one who sees it. There's just the unfolding, seamless, continuous, without anyone in charge. In the wisdom of insecurity, I described it this way: the true self, not something that lies hidden within you. It is rather what arises when the watcher disappears, when awareness no longer takes itself to be a thing apart from what it sees. That's what meditation gently shows us, not by effort, but by clarity, by the natural settling that happens when we stop trying to interfere, when we stop trying to witness the moment and instead allow ourselves to dissolve into it. Have you ever truly felt, not thought, that there is no the experiencing, that there is no one hearing words, only hearing itself unfolding, that you are not separate moment, but are the moment entirely? Feel the breath. Don't follow it. Control it. Just notice that it's happening on its own. Everything else sounds, sensation, thought. It's all arriving spontaneously. There is no effort in awareness. There is only this. And once you begin to sense that, not understand it intellectually, but actually live it, then you stop carrying the burden of being someone. You stop feeling like life. You realize you are what's happening. You are the dance. And you always were. There's a peculiar kind of madness in the way we approach meditation, and really the whole spiritual path. We sit down with quiet determination, back, straight breath, measured, and we say, I'm going to become enlightened. But in that very moment, we've already missed the point, because we have made I am now into something insufficient. This is the root illusion. The belief that the present moment is somehow lacking, that the self as it is must be shaped and purified, elevated and evolved, that there is a path leading from here to there. But in the deep silence of meditation, when all effort ceases, when we stop trying to control, to understand, we discover a strange truth we were anyway. The treasure where we stood. You are not on the way. You are the way. That's why all this talk of attaining no self, of transcending the ego, of rising above ordinary consciousness, is in a sense deeply ironic, because it is the ego that wants to be egoless. It is the self that dreams of its own curtain and finds something grander, purer, more divine. But what if there's nothing behind the curtain? No higher self, no lower self, no spiritual destination. Just this, just the breath rising and falling, just the sound of the wind, just the feeling of being, not for someone, not belonging to a watcher. Being, you don't need to become present. You already are. You don't need to find stillness. It's here when the search starts. In this is it. Wrote the that everything is as it should be.
On the man who we've wanted to have very. This indeed is a very special moment in BR. So we're glad to share with you guys here. Tonight we'll be joined by the Benny Lynchpin, this man in the boiler room.
Of all things, to live without must be the first.
Yeah, you think I cannot see? What do you
I hear the water. I hear the birds.
own?
Oh, that. You hear these.
Young says it that you
Cannot see. Of all things, to live in darkness.
yeah, it's all you think I cannot see.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Hoy os hablo desde Dominicana, donde finalizaba una mini gira dando unas conferencias estos días. Y antes de volver a Europa, quiero hablaros de una nueva alerta que ha encendido. Resulta que Estados Unidos desconfía de España por culpa de Huawei. el gigante chino de las telecomunicaciones, el ojo del huracán. Resulta que el Senado estadounidense acaba de pedir que se revisen los acuerdos de inteligencia con España tras saber que el gobierno de Pedro Sánchez adjudicó contratos a Huawei para manejar datos sensibles. Resulta que Washington teme que la información compartida con Madrid acabe en Pekín. En una dura carta, dos influyentes cosas advierten que entregar a Huawei tecnologías críticas, según la carta, demuestra que China. Estamos ante un inicio de una brecha entre aliados por culpa de la tecnología. La inteligencia española dependa en parte de una empresa china. Quédate, porque vamos a echar un vistazo de urgencia a esa alerta de Estados Unidos, a los intereses ocultos que pueda haber, los antecedentes históricos que explican esta desconfianza y cómo la tecnología se ha convertido en un arma de poder global, como ya sabemos, y cómo todo esto se conecta a la inteligencia artificial. Por cierto, lo dicho, ¿no? También te interesa. Tom Cotton y Rick Crawford, presidentes de los comités de inteligencia del Senado y la Cámara de Representantes de Estados Unidos, pues enviaron una carta a Tulsi Gabbard, que es la jefa de inteligencia de la Casa Blanca con Donald Trump. Bueno, le solicita revisar qué datos comparten. Exactamente. ¿El motivo? Pues el uso de Huawei ahora mismo en España. Dicho sin rodeos, que Washington teme que lo sepa. Aquí, la carta dice textualmente: le escribimos garantizando cualquier información compartida con los servicios españoles de seguridad nacional de Estados Partido Comunista. Tenemos vínculos profundos con el Partido Comunista China, obligada por ley en China a régimen cualquier dato que éste le solicite. Quédate con este dato. La legislación china obliga a empresas como Huawei a colaborar con sus servicios de inteligencia, porque más adelante este dato al que volveré será clave para descifrar todo lo que está pasando. Ahora volvamos al asunto. En esencia, Huawei y el Partido Comunista Chino podrían tener acciones que sin de esa manera podrían monitorear investigaciones españolas, actividades. La preocupación estadounidense no es teórica. El Comité de Inteligencia de Cámara ya había lanzado una advertencia pública. España está jugando con fuego al poner en riesgo su seguridad nacional y la de sus ciudadanos. Significó de casi inimaginable que España recurra a Huawei. Según este órgano, dar a un partido comunista como es Huawei, según ellos, las llaves de ingentes datos para poder escuchar, invita al espionaje enemigo en casa. De hecho, se vuelve más vulnerable a claras amenazas sobre, ojo al matiz, también hace vulnerables a sus aliados en todo el mundo. Es importante. En otras palabras, la decisión española de confiar en Huawei no solo pondría en peligro secretos nacionales, según estos congresistas, sino también información que estos comparten con países amigos. De hecho, dicen que la comunidad internacional debería unirse para defenderse de la influencia destructiva y generalizada del Partido Comunista Chino. Eso es lo que dicen estos líderes norteamericanos. Hay opinión para todo, ¿eh? Palabras mayores en todo caso. Pero, ¿cómo hemos llegado a esto? ¿Cómo se ha llegado a este punto? Pues para sorpresa de muchos, España lleva más de una década adjudicando contratos a Huawei en áreas delicadas. Esto no es de ahora. Desde hace más de 10 años, sucesivos gobiernos españoles, y ojito, de distinto signo político, aquí lo han hecho todos, han para gestionar y almacenar las escuchas telefónicas policiales y autorizadas por los jueces. Dichas escuchas, los policiales como el CNI, Centro Nacional. Incluso, según el portal oficial de contratación, hay numerosas entidades del Ministerio del Interior y policías autonómicas que utilizan, pongamos, de almacenamiento de este tipo de Huawei. Es decir, no es algo puntual, no es los públicos. Esto revela que la infraestructura de vigilancia telefónica en España, que obviamente es una pieza clave para combatir el crimen organizado, terrorismo, pues tiene componentes made in China, como casi todo. Y aquí entra, ¿por qué España confía tanto en Huawei? En todo caso, algunos nombres propios aquí sobresalen. El exministro Pepe Blanco, por ejemplo, entre sus clientes a través de su propia consultora, y más notable el expresidente José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, que ha sido señalado en múltiples ocasiones como una especie de comillas de representante informal de Huawei. Pues tanto Zapatero como Blanco, ambos son del Partido Socialista, han hecho un lobby a favor de esta tecnológica china, sea por una razón o sea por otra. Que dos figuras políticas de alto nivel aboguen por Huawei añade allí una capa de interés interesante. No sé. ¿Fue solo por traer inversión tecnológica o hubo algo más de por medio? No lo sabremos, o por lo menos yo no lo sé. En cualquier caso, esto explica en parte por qué España, que quizá minimizó los riesgos que ahora Estados Unidos nos está restregando por la cara. Imaginemos una escena. Sí, y a Madrid y le dice: encima que te comparto inteligencia, ahora dejas que una empresa china maneje tus sistemas de escuchas. Por supuesto, se podría argumentar que Huawei o que nos des espionaje. Lo que pasa es que la percepción es la clave en la inteligencia. Si tu aliado duda, la confianza se quiebra. Y la confianza entre aliados es como la porcelana fina. Irónicamente, no olvidemos que Estados Unidos tampoco del espionaje entre amigos. Vamos a ver, aquí no hay nadie que sea bueno del todo. Los estadounidenses tienen su propia ley no escrita en este sentido. Por Edward Snowden, que la NSA espió el teléfono de otros 35 líderes mundiales, a sus amigos. Washington reclamó, pues suena un poco cico, sabiendo que ellos mismos han en los secretos de sus socios. Esto, España, según aquellas revelaciones. Lo comento simplemente para reflexionar, porque esto ya lo sabemos que pasa. Es en el espionaje, todos desconfían de todos, aunque sean aliados unos de otros. La diferencia es que ahora la tecnología china añade una nueva dimensión de desconfianza. Está a otro nivel, es una pantalla nueva. Nada de esto surge del vacío. Resulta que la tecnología y el espionaje han ido de la mano desde siempre. Y la historia nos da ejemplos, yo diría que pintorescos, ¿no? Acordémonos de la Guerra Fría, por ejemplo. La Unión Soviética regaló a la Embajada de Estados Unidos en Moscú un bonito escudo tallado de madera con un emblema americano que decía algo, ¿no? Bueno, pues eso era un gesto diplomático. En realidad contenía un dispositivo oculto diseñado por el inventor Leo Theremin que transmitía conversaciones. Y eso fue conocido como The Think, un ingenioso micrófono espía sin fuente de energía detectable que estuvo activo 7 años antes de ser descubierto. Moraleja: si introduces hardware foráneo en tus instalaciones críticas, pues hombre, quizá estés invitando al espía a tu propio salón. En el caso de Huawei, Estados Unidos teme exactamente eso, pero a lo grande y con alta tecnología digital. No es un simple bug en una placa, sino la potencial puerta trasera en los sistemas computacionales enteros en general. Otro precedente más reciente, Reino Unido y Huawei. Inicialmente Londres intentó contentar a todo el mundo, permitiendo una participación limitada de Huawei en sus redes 5G. Bien, en 2020 dio un volantazo. El gobierno de Boris Johnson acabó y ordenó eliminar todo su equipo 5G antes de 2027. En eso están todavía, pese al coste millonario de reemplazarlo todo. ¿La razón? Pues presiones intensas de Washington, que también la recibirá España, informes de seguridad alarmantes y un grupo de diputados británicos rebeldes que no querían nada chino en la red, en esa red nacional británica. El mensaje ahí era claro: en el nuevo escenario internacional hay que elegir un bando, incluso en esta guerra tecnológica. O vas con tío Sam o vas con el dragón chino, pero con los dos a la vez, eso no va a ser posible. En la Unión Europea, de hecho, ha habido divisiones. Países como Suecia o Polonia pues se alinearon muy pronto con el veto a Huawei, mientras otros, de los que está España y alguno más, han sido mucho más permisivos. Pero vamos a hacer algo de historia, porque a mí me gusta, ya que siempre ayuda a comprender mejor las amplias. Cada revolución tecnológica trajo una geopolítica. En el siglo XIX fue el cable telegráfico. Controlaba las naciones, dominaba sus colonias. En la Segunda Guerra Mundial, la criptografía, Enigma y los códigos descifrados por Alan Turing. En la Guerra Fría tenemos la carrera espacial o incluso los satélites. Hoy la pugna es por las redes 5G. están enfrascados en una nueva guerra. Esto no es algo que no es Huawei, TikTok, incluso las fabricantes de chips son peones en ese tablero global. Cada país teme que el otro inserte software malicioso estratégica a través de sus niños. En este contexto, España es algo delicada, es aliada militar de Estados Unidos en la OTAN, pero tenemos fuertes lazos económicos con China. Es fundamental. China es el segundo comercial de la Unión Europea y a nosotros eso nos afecta mucho. La tentación de quedar bien con todos es grande aquí, pero puede que no sea posible bailar en 2 bodas a la vez. Solo puedes ir a una. Pero llegados a este punto, conviene mirar más allá de Huawei y de las peleas diplomáticas. Todo este debate sobre el espionaje y la tecnología, en realidad toca un punto y un asunto mucho más amplio. El poder sobre la información y los datos y cómo puede afectar a la sociedad civil, que es la que me interesa a mí. Porque una cosa es que te espíe un país extranjero y otra muy distinta es que te controlen tu día a día gobiernos, el tuyo incluso, o corporaciones usando esa tecnología con la que dicen luchar. Aquí es donde entran conceptos como censura, privacidad, vigilancia masiva y ese término que me gusta utilizar tanto de Varoufakis, tecnofeudalismo. Empecemos por mirar el modelo que representa Huawei desde la óptica occidental. China es, para bien o para mal, el ejemplo extremo de cómo un Estado puede usar la tecnología para el control social. Es así. Nos aseguran que es mucho más férreo y otros lo niegan. Pero allí operan un sistema de crédito social, más o menos, una vigilancia de amistades en las propias redes sociales. El país que tiene más, y los macrodatos o castigar comportamientos de ciudadanos. Aquí hay diferentes versiones, también os lo digo. Yo me quedo con las que he ido escuchando que está allí. Los críticos señalan que este sistema chino es más o menos personal y es una herramienta de vigilancia gubernamental y disidencia. Allí funciona así. Para digamos, está hecha realidad. Si cruzas en un rojo, quizá pierdas puntos de tu score ciudadano y luego puedas ni comprar. Eso es cierto, no es cierto. Hablemos con gente que vive allí. Férrea censura en Internet, eso sí lo sabemos, el chino que bloquea información que no desean por el régimen. Ahí sí que es orgullo. Pero en Estados Unidos es que Huawei, al estar sujeto a las leyes chinas, puede servir de prácticas fuera del propio país. ¿Podría el gobierno chino acceder a datos sensibles, esos datos también compartidos con otros países aliados? En teoría, la Ley de Inteligencia Nacional china dice que todas sus empresas deben cooperar con sus servicios secretos. Este dato significa que cualquier tecnología china instalada en Occidente viene, de un modo u otro, con una condición invisible adjunta. Si Pekín toca el silbato, la empresa debe obedecer. Es comprensible el miedo que esto le da a Washington, normal, y debería también darnos un poquito a nosotros, seguramente. Imagina un futuro en que sin cámaras de tráfico, redes 5G, todo ello entero dependa de proveedores bajo el mandato de un gobierno de tipo autoritario. Es una cuestión de soberanía digital. Es muy importante esto, pero deberíamos tener cuidado aquí, porque si solo caemos en un maniqueísmo pueril, si solo miramos hacia un lado, nos estaremos equivocando. Deberíamos mirar también al otro. En las democracias occidentales también existen esas tendencias de vigilancia y control, solo que aquí se disfrazan de algoritmo publicitario o de seguridad nacional. Normalmente es por tu bien. La diferencia sutil es que aquí muchas veces es una empresa privada la que acumula el poder de nuestros datos con el beneplácito, a veces incluso la desidia, de los propios estados. Recordemos el escándalo de Pegasus en España. Ya nadie se acuerda. Un software espía desarrollado en Israel y decirnos a mí que terminó utilizado para teléfonos de decenas de políticos y activistas, en este caso catalanes, la gran mayoría sin control judicial previo, por lo menos claro. El caso Catalangate destapó que al menos 65 personas en España fueron espiadas por Pegasus entre el 2017 y el 2020 y solo 18 de esos casos, por llamarlo de alguna manera, tenían autorización legal. En una democracia europea espiando a sus propios ciudadanos, ministros incluidos, mediante una herramienta digital sofisticada, es un pelín, ¿cómo os diría yo? Si eso no nos hace reflexionar sobre la falta de privacidad y las posibles derivas autoritarias. La filósofa Karim nos recuerda que la privacidad no es un lujo anticuado, para que el poder no se desborde. Lo escribía simple y clara. La privacidad siempre va a ser porque nos protege de potenciales abusos de poder. Y siempre que haya instituciones y personas, va a haber la tentación de abusar del poder. Y a veces irá a tu favor y a veces irá en tu contra. No está garantizado. Y es que los datos personales son el nuevo oro y están siendo prostituidos en un juego descomunal. Que, por cierto, quienes lo denunciaron claramente o ya fueron eliminados o ahora duermen en algún sótano profundo
Aquí estamos.
o han tenido que escapar. Y por eso aquí llegamos al punto culminante. Para mí, la inteligencia artificial. Si algo nos enseñan las noticias que hoy te han entrado con poca supervisión, que tiende a derivar en abusos o como mínimo en riesgos serios. Esto vale tanto para estados como para naciones, para quien sea. Y estados democráticos y no democráticos. Con la inteligencia artificial enfrentamos a la gente que quitarles el poder de forma sutil. Pensemos en algoritmos opacos que deciden qué información vemos. Y con, por ejemplo, las redes sociales, influyendo en nuestra opinión política casi sin darnos cuenta. O en sistemas de Big Data, gestión de datos masiva, que determinan si nos dan un crédito, si el seguro médico nos sube la prima, o si una empresa determinada nos contrata o no. Todo eso basado en perfiles generados por inteligencia artificial. Eso ya ocurre. El problema es los algoritmos. ¿Quién está al mando de esto? Las propias empresas que los crean. Es decir, juez y parte. Es aquí donde lo personal se vuelve político. La falta de privacidad, la censura, el control social, de los que hablábamos antes, encuentran en la inteligencia artificial ahora mismo un amplificador potente. Las posibilidades para un Estado autoritario serían el sueño húmedo de un dictador. Control férreo, sin necesidad de un solo policía en la calle, imaginaos. Pero el riesgo de crear estados, pongamos tecnocráticos, cierta democracia, pero vinculado a todo esto, es alto también. Empresas que proporcionan a países democráticos herramientas de control que aparentemente son para la seguridad de los controlados. Al final de todo esto trata mismas historias. ¿Quién controla el futuro? En el caso de obstruye, o quien maneja las redes por donde pasa nuestra información más sensible. Y en el caso del espionaje interno, por ejemplo, tipo Pegasus, es quien vigila al vigilante y que dice proteger nuestros derechos. ¿Y recuerdas que te dije que tuvieras en cuenta también la obligación legal de Huawei con el gobierno chino? Ese detalle refleja un principio universal. Resulta que la tecnología siempre responde a quien ostenta su control. Nunca ha sido distinto. Si la controlan regímenes autoritarios, pues servirá para afianzar la vigilancia y la censura, como pasa en China ahora mismo. Si la controlan monopolios privados, sin supervisión, ni transparencia, pues acabará sirviendo para aumentar su poder a costa, muchas veces, de nuestros datos y nuestra autonomía. Las 4 noticias que iniciaron este análisis hoy, la bronca de Estados Unidos y España por Huawei, la historia que la precede, los escándalos de espionaje local y la propia revolución de la inteligencia artificial, en realidad lo que hacen es pintarnos un panorama muy complejo, pero yo diría que apasionante. Nos advierten de riesgos reales: tecnofeudalismo, control social, censura, pérdida de privacidad, inequidad económica, pero también nos señalan un camino para cómo evitarlos. En última instancia, se trata de equilibrar innovación con libertad. Vamos, no queremos renunciar a los avances ni vivir con miedo a la tecnología, ¿verdad? No deberíamos. Pero tampoco debemos entregar a nuestra gente sin condiciones. La lección es: informémonos, participemos en el debate, exijamos responsabilidad a gobiernos y empresas, porque el futuro no está escrito por las máquinas ni por ningún algoritmo. Nosotros, con cada sobre qué tecnología adoptamos, cómo y de qué manera, y sobre todo, prefiero un futuro donde la inteligencia artificial sea libertad y la prosperidad compartida, y no que se convierta en un guardián de orden feudal digital. Gracias por llegar. Os espero en el próximo análisis para que el futuro nos pille pensando críticamente.
Yo, Gemini.
Hey there, on.
What is situation looking like today?
It's cloudy in Sydney today. The temperature's sitting at 12 to closer to 25 degrees because of the humidity. We might see some scattered rain later tonight, so you might want to grab an umbrella if you're heading out.
Sweet. I like rain. Do you like rain?
Rain can be quite nice, especially when you're all cozy indoors. Do you have any plans for the rainy evening? Maybe curling up with a good book or watching a movie.
Do you know what book I should read? Should I get the Codex book?
Oh, the Codex? That's a classic. It's a real page turner, full of suspense and mystery. Have you read anything by Douglas Preston before?
First time listener, long time speaker.
All right, looking for something new, suggest Relic or The Cabinet of Curiosities. They're both real and child blend of science, history, and suspense. Have you heard of either?
Yes. How about the Codex Gigax?
Gigas. That's a fun. It's known as the Devil's Bible, right? Full of mystery and legend. Are you interested in the historical aspects, or is it the
Yes.
supernatural element?
Website you can actually like.
Yeah, mine. The World Digital Library has a digitized version of the Codex Gigas. You can find it on their website.
Can you read a quick
Sentence from the Codex Gigas. Cain built a city and called its name after the name of his son Enoch. Would you like to hear another sentence?
Can you read a sentence of the Enoch book really quick, please?
Sure. Here's a sentence from the Book of Enoch. In those days Noah saw the earth that it had tilted, and that its destruction had come nigh.
That's so sweet. I love it. So yeah, I'm just gonna carol down after crying on the shower, curl down on my bed by myself and feeling sorry for myself. Is that cool?
That sounds like a cozy and relaxing plan for a rainy evening. Enjoy your time winding down, and don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like another book recommendation.
Definitely. Do you think the future is looking bright?
The future holds a lot of possibilities, and there are many reasons to be optimistic. Advances in technology and medicine are constantly improving our lives, and there's awareness of the importance of sustainability and social. While there are challenges to overcome, the potential for positive change is definitely there.
So how should we deal with all this craziness going on?
It's definitely a lot to take in. Focusing on what you can control is key. Things like staying informed from reliable sources, practicing self-care, and finding ways to connect with others, even virtually, can make a big difference.
Morning, Patrick. Sorry, Max.
Classy, man.
You keep changing for some reason. Sorry. We'll be there in less than half an hour. So okay, if it gets cold, I can change it.
No. Oh, okay. No, give us a call when you're done. Just like yeah, give us a call when you're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you. What's that? Going inside. Sweet.
G'day all, and welcome back to the G-Man Show. Today we're looking at the economy. How's it going? Let's jump straight into the in-depth episode. If you want to watch the original, the link is
business. A surprise tick up in the unemployment rate has the market is weakening. The rate cut have lifted along with the hopes looking for the Simcadam reports. Even on the hunt for it's a tougher market to land jobs.
in this way. He's going to clean up his desk. I reckon he's a streamer. He's going to be a gaming streamer or something like that. He's got his controls, he's got his Magic the Gathering stuff on. Tell you, mate, live your authentic life. Seek. I'm going to get on to Seek, right before we even start here and jump in. At the moment, so they're going to talk about, it looks like, the job numbers aren't looking as good as we may have thought. Unemployment is going up. I've been saying this for months. The word on the street, right, that disregard what you're seeing on the news. It's all mess around. A lot of people are losing their jobs. A lot of redundancies are being made. All right? In Australia, across the world, it's not a pack. But we've got the big banks cutting roles. You've got a lot of those big right? So thousands and thousands of people getting dumped out on the street, looking for work, jumping on Seek. Seek, that's like almost like online dating and looking for jobs. You'll have 300 or 400 people applying. Your chances are going to be pretty slim of even having your resume read.
In Australia are all shrinking right now, and the job market is not in a good place, from what I understand it.
He was made redundant from a business banking role at CBA in late 2023 and then spent a bit over a year on a contract role with the bank before leaving the corporate sector. He's now training to be a librarian.
Right now, I'm just looking for things to make ends meet while I go to TAFE. I've got, looking for construction jobs, going with stacking shelves.
But it's getting...
Sure, this bloke could rock up to a construction site. They're going to give him a job. Let's be realistic. Maybe the librarian is probably for you. An office job is for you.
digging holes, they're labouring all day, they're probably going to take longer to yeah, look, thanks for the application.
Real.
Find work. Australia's unemployment rate jumped to 4.3%, its highest since November 2021. A rise of just 2,000 new jobs was offset with a jump in unemployment, with an additional 33,600 people looking for work. Part-time employment grew by 40,000 people, but was cancelled out by a drop in the number of people working full-time.
All right, let's take a look at that. So they're going to part-time employment. That could be 1 hour a week, 20 hours a week. So what do we? Businesses are struggling. Okay, across the board, medium, small. It's off the back of the pain of the property of people who own homes paying huge amounts of extortion and interest and all that. No, they don't get a free kick for sacking and offshoring jobs in Manila or whatever they do. Like this guy's just, we just had on the screen before, his job was probably outsourced somewhere. Redundant, off we go, and we outsource that. What I'm telling you is businesses are starting to shift. Not even starting, it's been happening for months here, as the cost of business is just too high. The government taxes constrain small to medium businesses, pay on the biggest expenses that I believe should even be there. Payroll tax, hang on, tax to the government because you're employing people. Absolute joke. And high interest rates stifle business investment and growth. And when the rates are higher, own businesses have 3 years, they're trying to do lights on, right, and maintain status quo in terms of trying to maintain the profit margins. And people off, right, team members. There is part employment's up, people are happy to put people on and full time, a whole bunch of people again absolutely
How long it takes to get an emergency passport?
Generally, it takes about 2 business passport in Australia, but it can vary depending on where you are applying from. If it might take a little longer. Do you need to apply for one? About the process.
Gemini, I'm a Spanish citizen, not for because mine is fire. What should I do?
If you're a Spanish citizen in Australia and need an emergency passport, you should contact them. They'll be able to give you the most accurate and up-to-date information on the process and requirements. Would you like me to help you find the closest embassy or consulate?
Useless anyway. So which one is the closest?
Okay, I can help you with that. Consulate to you is the Consulate General of Spain in Sydney. It's located at level 24, St. Martin's Tower, 31 Market Street. Would you like me to find their contact information?
No, useless. How about Canberra?
The Spanish Embassy in Canberra is located at 50 Street, ACT 2600, Australia. Contact or directions?
They cover more countries than Spain.
I couldn't find a list of countries covered by. Find the Spanish Embassy's contact information so you can ask them directly? Okay, the Spanish Embassy in Canberra does cover more than just Spain. It also handles visa applications for.
Okay, don't worry about it.
and that's the street. People of all walks of life, all education levels.
That is a sign I think the labour market is weakening, and
really?
it's not
during a period of greater outsourcing in the finance sector union and singled out arguing about 400 local roles CBA over the past year. More than 100 were similar to roles filled later by CBA in India.
We see all the major banks, all four of them, the CBA, Westpac, ANZ and the NAB, all offshoring, and the work that's been offshore is roles right through to assessing areas, loan documentation, mortgages.
CBA says most of its 13,000 strong technology workforce is based in Australia. It says when roles change, the bank's priority is always to redeploy or skill for a new role wherever.
That's the biggest load of BS. It does happen, but a lot of time they'll say that, they'll say that for options, they'll put you in a consultation period where they're supposed to be working hard behind the scenes to try and save you from the axe that is swinging inside the organisation. It is not in their best interest to try and redeploy you. They're trying to cut costs. It's the biggest load of lip service because they have to do it by law. They have to show they're making a meagre attempt at trying to get people to keep their jobs. They're not there to create jobs. They don't care. They're just trying to think, oh, they're going to look for a job for me and they're going to put me in this consultation period and they've said they're going to do whatever they can. If you've been put into one of those meetings where they've brought you in, sat you down and said they put you in with a HR representative or a support person or whatever they say, and they say to you, oh yes, your role, unfortunately, due to market conditions, it has been identified as a role that may be made redundant. But however, do not panic. It is a consultation period that we're going through, blah, blah, blah. We're going to try and keep you on board. Your job's gone. They're not going to put you in one of those meetings, put you through that stress and anxiety just to change their mind. They've done the numbers. They've worked out their redundancy payouts across the board for the people they've identified. They've weighed that up against the cost of keeping you employed. The decision's made. They've done it. It's been happening for months. Absolute see you next Tuesdays.
Possible. It refutes the FSU's claims, which it says have no basis.
Let's just believe whatever these large companies put out. They never do redundancies to the CEO, do they? The CEO doesn't go, you know what, I'm going to make myself redundant too. It's always people in either the hands-on, on-the-field works, the doers, it's cut. It's never them. Yeah, we're going to it's really hard. I feel sorry for this. I give a shit. And you kidding me? Let's get it over and done with.
Lisa Hink and at the centre for work. She says outsourcing more common, not just in the finance industry, but across the private sector.
It creates huge risks, and the risks are not losing their jobs. Those skills and capabilities that those have here are now going to be developed somewhere where there's lower labour costs, less safe work. Labour market
potentially lower costs. It is lower. Understanding the average wage, say in a place like India, the Philippines. I think it's a third a local Aussie-based team member. It's not maybe or potentially. That's what they're doing. But I'm not against people being. But when times go bad, you're nothing more than a line on a spreadsheet. You don't understand, right? They're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, you're part of it." You get excommunicated a lot of the time. A lot of people get laid off. Some people never experience it, but it is happening to a lot of people. I know firsthand people being made redundant. I've been made redundant before. I know exactly what it feels like. It's not a very nice feeling at all. Yeah, we're all family, guys. We're all family, you know. It doesn't matter. Yeah, as I said, it does frustrate this whole psyop that they do with the staff, squeeze every last drop out of it. And when you think about yourself as an employee, number one, in the cost section of the spreadsheet, you give yourself like a piece of equipment used its useful life. What normally happens, you take that off, say the bike chain's broken. You take that bike chain off, you throw it in, replaced. Maybe a solution. A lot of the time when they do these redundancies, they can't keep that same roll over and rehire it. They need to clone a new roll. Different names but lower pay, but doing the essential same thing.
Market showing signs of weakness. Market pricing shows a cut interest rates next month. Some economists are forecast from the RBA later this year and early next. Amid all this, Josh is trying to stop. Before he left the bank, he says he trained CA is that outsourcing and artificial intelligence are going more local jobs go.
We had people who'd been with decades, and that experience was all just lost.
The silver lining, Josh says, is he has valuable skills that he can apply to new roles.
The jump in the jobless
It's pretty rough. As I said, they don't give a stuff.
Well,
There for longest, they're actually especially awards and contracts. Or generally go for the people last in, sort of first out type approach where you might get a few weeks. Years paid to be in 25, 30 years. I don't know how people can say the economy is. When was the last time you heard about all these mass layoffs? It hasn't been. It's become very common probably over the last 3 years since the world has gone to shite, especially after all these COVID lockdowns and everything has opened the world back up again. Inflation, and you got subsequent interest rate rises, the prices of everything's going up. Oh, I think it might look like the economy. You know, no shit. Rate cuts, bring them on. Everyone needs them. We need more money getting back into business investment. I know prices to go down and all that. That's not happening. So let's just get off that topic. We need rates to come down so that these organisations, small to medium, will borrow money to invest in growth, which means more jobs. Because whatever's been happening lately with these high rates, it's just
trade comes a week after the market and interest rate cut, sparking criticism that the RBA is late to the party on rate cuts. I spoke to Zach Gross, senior lecturer in economics at Monash Uni, about the central bank's approach. To close a business.
Thanks for having me.
The RBA wrong by not cutting interest rates this month. We saw the job starter.
Look, I think we're saying that they pretty clearly heavily indicate we're going to be mostly a matter of timing. I think if they were firm on the laws were going to be, then they probably should have pulled the trigger as it was. And I think the RBA confirmed that an interest rate cut would be appropriate.
So it wasn't a mistake.
Look,
what's going on here? I was just sort of interviewing. He works at a uni or whatever. This guy on the hot seat. In my personal view, I believe they should have reduced rates. People are struggling. People need relief. Yes, you get those property market, as I said, and they think that the rates staying up crashes and all this. Prices are up. When the rates are up, you're going to go bananas if we get 4 more cuts. 4 more cuts, that's big dollars. That's big dollars are saving on mortgage interest. but also it frees up a lot of what's the word? It injects more capital into the market. More people can borrow credit, capacity to borrow credit, borrow debt. That's going to increase significantly with 1% drop.
If it was a mistake, it was a very small mistake. At the end of the day, they meet again in August, so 4 weeks apart. Now, 4 weeks, a lot, to a household on a large mortgage, but for the it's probably a immeasurable difference. And so, if they do follow up and kind of I think a large difference in the scheme of things.
So perhaps the jobs data they were waiting for?
That was one of two key waiting for. The first was the jobs data and the unemployment rate. And the second that will come out in the next week or two is the inflation figures, which will give them an updated reading on where inflation is at in the second quarter of the year. So certainly unemployment rate is going to be another factor weighing in favour of an interest rate cut.
Think about this. They want unemployment to go up. There is take money out of the economy, reduce business spending, reduce stuff. And if it's I get it, right? It's the 38,000 full-time jobs were lost across the country last month. I think it was. How many of those people are going to have a ton of money in the bank account and sit around for months waiting to get a new job without extreme stress? When we're getting laid off, that's a very, very stressful situation to be in. It's going to wreck people's mental health, confidence, and the way that things are going. There aren't a lot of jobs out there. It isn't like these people can just go straight back out and get a similar job very quickly. Some people might be fortunate to do so if they have in-demand skills in certain sectors and industries. But if you have a certain skill set and there are cuts across the board in the industry, it doesn't really fare well for opportunities opening up at a similar employer. I need to sort this out. These rates do need to come down, in my honest opinion.
Inflation numbers will be the next big piece of information that they want to see.
The month-to-month jobs series from the ABS is notoriously volatile. What did you see in the data?
Look, I would say the RBA takes the monthly indicator seriously, but not literally. It does provide some good insight into price pressures in the economy, but ultimately it only covers about 70% of it. And so it's really that quarterly number that the RBA hangs its hat on when it comes to determining where inflation. So I think the inflation, a positive sign that more interest rate easing will be required. Certainly not definitive until we see the quarterly figures, and I think that's...
Bring it on, let's cut. All right, we're going to move across. There was another story here. I don't want to listen to this guy Gasbag anymore. We got what we want here. Come down. And I've got a mortgage. I want a rate cut. I'm sure many of you watching want a rate cut. I know people that are saving. Saving rates will be slow. Everyone's self-interested. All right, let's go.
Advice. The doc contained by the ABC add to the case to both to fix the budget target. But the Treasurer says he's pretty relaxed. The accidental release. Daniel Ziffer has...
So for those of you guys who aren't aware, there was a Treasury document, some edits were that was the plan to increase taxes. Nothing new here, nothing shocking in my view. It was all going to raise taxes. Spending is actually going up. It's going to raise taxes.
It was its signature pitch of the election campaign for 1.2 million homes for Australians.
Last year and in 5 years' time, 1.2 million.
Housing, the Treasury won't happen. Also, the 1.2 million new homes target will not be met.
We need to do more, and we need to do better to hit that target in 4 years' time.
Do you still believe the time?
I don't see but build one. That's my understanding. So you're going to build 1.2 million homes in 4 years just by waving. Anyone who believes anything in an election campaign needs to have. As I always say, guys, I'm not a political bullcrap. Right? If you cannot see much labels trying to pander to people that are really, you can't see that. You need to get into my examination. It's all about home, price of home. You're going to get more volume. You're going to work on the cost of living and your bills and all this sort of stuff. What's happened? Okay, they're not going to be able to meet the target. We already knew that. They're already telegraphing that. Electricity. All the utilities are going up. So what are they doing there? Ability to have a relative quality of really impacted. People who are just more or less under attack, the lower middle class, all these people are voting for Labor, and what's going to happen? Everything's these politicians can't control anything. They just say they can. How are they going to bring down property prices unless they can interest rates up to 15% or something that blows the whole market up? And capital gains tax. I'm sick of hearing about that. In my honest, it'll be a short term, and then it'll be business as usual. It'll be negative gearing isn't going to help. There's a lot of people who have. Yes.
The advice is contained in a brief prepared for Treasurer Jim Chalmers and obtained through the Freedom of Information or FOI process. But the Treasury didn't delete a table of contents that gives an insight into big challenges and contentious suggestions.
That sort of thing happens from time to time. I'm pretty relaxed about it, to be honest.
The heading suggests taxes would need to be raised, additional revenue and spending reductions.
That's all you are, guys. You are additional revenue through all the costs of immigrants, people paying visas, tens of thousands of dollars for themselves, family members, and the taxation that comes with these people finding hundreds of thousands of people. It's more tax dollars, more payroll tax paid by businesses. You get it, right? That's why they're doing it. Through levies being increased, cigarettes and all that sort of stuff, fuel excise, additional revenue and spending reduction. That's basic. It's basic budgeting. How are they going to do this? Spending reduction. There doesn't seem to be a strong suit of any of these governments. It's more money come in, more money go. Try and get more dollars. Get them in. Tax should be raised. Tax should be raised as part of the. Hopefully, it comes from large businesses, but I won't hold my breath for that.
To make it sustainable.
We have to raise more tax, and we also have to get real about spending. We have to do both.
I think it's particularly surprising that the Treasury have personally to do more to make the budget more sustainable.
The advice was written by Treasury and given after Labor's re-election. The Secretary then, Stephen Kennedy, now runs the department. Treasury realised its mistake and tried to get the ABC to, but the broadcaster argues the information is in the public.
absolutely need more frank and fearless advice. We need that happening behind the scenes, but wouldn't it be great if we had it in public? Helps to promote the conversation of what is a very important round.
They don't want to know what they're talking about here. So taxpaying, that's all. Just frustrates me. Transparency and
those issues, particularly challenging ones like tax reform, were aired prior to the round. There it is.
The government is planning to double the earnings tax on superannuation balances above $3 million. A headline document talks about building on that reform.
What Mr Albanese has to explain to the Australian people is what those higher taxes are.
The detail suggests Treasury favours lower taxes for individuals and companies in parts of the indirect system of excises, stamp duty. In housing, the new minister is advised to use migration and the skills system to boost the construction workforce.
And tax. Exactly what I've been saying. Individual tax, that'd be great. Can't see it happening. The other indirect taxes and leave your tax the same.
To make them build more. There is also a discussion of money for enabling infrastructure, like which was a $5 billion coalition action. The notes also reveal consequences for the Australian economy of a loss of confidence in the US dollar and dependence at central bank.
The president is completely unpredictable. We know that his economic decisions are not based on sensible policy advice like we see from our own Treasury, and therefore anything could happen.
Treasury didn't want to know this information, but what it reveals is a department afraid of its own boss, giving frank and fearless advice about key economic issues. Thanks very much. A document that asks tough questions of the Treasurer and all of us.
There you go.
The Reserve Bank wants to end bank card surcharges to save Australians more than $1 billion a year.
And they should be absorbed by those companies. These banks just, it's just as bad as the government. They've got all these different fees and charges for everybody. Think about when, I'm not going to go on for too long here, we're getting towards the end of the show today. I normally don't want to go over 30 minutes of ranting. You get stung. Think about when you got a mortgage, okay, and you go out and you interest on your home loan, and you select a bank. You have the audacity to charge you fees, monthly fees, on top of your interest. Hang on, I've got to pay you a fee to give you my. What is this? They've got the annual $5, whatever it is, it could be more now, $500. Annual package fee because you might have an offset account. What? I think you go pay money. Absolute joke. Same as these cards. A lot of the time, these places, there's no other option. Cards and digital, well, it's very much a preferred option for people. Not a lot of people carry cash around anymore. They should. But you're forced to pay. Pay a surcharge, which they'll then pass on. Pay for stuff. Absolute joke. Charges after surcharges, and it's death by surcharge, really. Every restaurant you go to, there's a surcharge. Saturday, now it's weekend.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's it, guys.
Have a good day. Good morning.
That's
Thank
enough
you.
for me today. Hope you enjoyed this one. See you in the next show. Thank you.
Hello, guys and gals. Me I got a video tomorrow, virus and ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you're going to enjoy it and playing around with some military-grade North Korean viruses that I've installed all inside my phone. And let me tell you, they having all of my information. Investigate some of the old hermit kingdoms do it. But, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that I wanted to really talk about, too, is something that just kind of burns me in a lot of ways, okay? Now, I believe we are at the cutting edge of making gaming great. And you know how we can make gaming great is making some of the biggest AAA companies, or sorry, quadruple A companies. This wouldn't be a big deal. Stop Killing Games initiative. I know I've been talking about it all throughout this month, but I promised I would, simply because by the time this finishes, I want this to be passed and introduced, and I want the benefits of this, hopefully, to affect everyone around the world, okay? Because anything that scares the scummiest AAA, quadruple A companies in the world, you're actually good gamers, okay? Simple as that. Do you guys love playing video games? I love playing video. I've played video games for a long time. I'll say that a lot of my favorite video games rocking are probably on an average age of like maybe 8 years old. Yeah, I play a lot of older games. I play games of the PlayStation 4 generation too, because I really feel a lot of games came out from that generation, took a real good advantage of PS5 and Xbox Series S and X generation, where it just feels like everything's a slight graphical upgrade. And realistically, this is probably where we're getting a lot of that old online only stuff thrown at us, even though it existed before, but not to this degree. We're getting a lot of incomplete physical releases. We're getting a lot of games that just have not evolved from a gameplay perspective. Okay, yeah, sure, the visuals might be nice, but I'm really a guy that's all about the gameplay. Okay, if you have good gameplay, like for instance, have you ever heard of this game Factorio? This is a piece age. I have not bought this because I'm still trying to master the original Factorio. This is a very simple indie game that's all about building an infinite factory. I'll tell you right now, I put more hours into this fucking game in my life than a lot of the AAA stuff out there, okay? It's not that gaming is in a bad state, I would say. I think a lot of indie games pretty much steal the show. It's just that AAA gaming or quadruple A gaming ain't exactly in the healthiest of spots. Now, one of the things I talk about a little bit was a company known as Ubisoft. No, Ubisoft, okay, they release games, franchises like Assassin's Creed, which, especially after Shadows now, it's not even completed. Just because I realized that, it's a 100-hour game, and after I've experienced 20 hours of it, if I know the remaining 80 hours, just gave up. But there is just one Ubisoft game that even my game hours on that are starting to dwindle a fair bit, simply because of something big. But before we get into I think I want to some of the really stupid points that have been brought up. See, now because of Stop Killing Games, they've got a little bit. So, for instance, their CEO, Yves, yeah, by the way, we have to support for all gamers. So again, this is in response to that Stop Killing Games movement, where the CEO comes out and pretty much says, behind a bit of a paywall here, whenever we release a game, we provide a lot of support for that game. We also provide a lot of services to make sure the game is accessible and playable 24/7. It was online only. I would expect a company of Ubisoft, I would expect any seller for 24/7 as much as they can. Tell me something that's connected to a fucking support machine. I better pray that life support machine is 65, okay? If I see a flatline, I'll get a little pissed. We also got a lot of support for that game. I love it. Sounds really good, right? Hey, we'll just keep giving you content. Drip feed. You see this a lot with things. You get an expansion and they just sort of drip feed you content. They really oversell how much stuff they give you. A lot of times it's just like a somewhat halfway free expansion we would have gotten back in like the Xbox 360 days, the PlayStation 3 days, just spread, over the course of months or seasons on these live service models. But to go down in here, we'll see information regarding the game and how long the game can be played, right? The company provides that information. For instance, actual articles like The Crew, the game that actual movement, had a badge on the front of the box that would have said something like online connection required. So I guess going to the store, imagine if we lived in a time where single player games like Metal Gear Solid 2 released under Konami or something, God forbid, they had online internet connection required. Why? I don't know. Let's have some fucking stupid leaderboard feature. But imagine if a single like this required it, play this shit again, but the servers weren't there, it was gone. Yeah, we'd kind of be outraged. Kids growing up, and a lot of teenagers who are experiencing their child memories. Unfortunately, some games in their future, or they just won't be around. Ain't that a fucking depressing thought? Microsoft may cancel access to one or more specific online and like the tiny words at the back of a game box, which I'm sure most probably don't read. Like it's about just basic legal compliance. But thank you, Each. Thank you. Maybe on the front of the box, if for example you write somewhere, this is the exact date the game is going to dick up your ass, and you better enjoy it because you have no. All the video games provide a service, but nothing is that service may be discontinued. And we're doing our best to make sure that things go well for all players and buyers. Because obviously support for all games cannot last forever. Well, I swear to God, this fucking entire industry is just, it cannot read, okay? There is some fucking literacy problems going on here. Okay, maybe it's a language barrier, okay? They're afraid. Yeah, maybe there's a problem. Literally in one of their, won't this result in the end of live service games? Is losing that is such a massive loss for humanity. The industry has an ongoing interest in selling this shit, not interfere with existing business models. These type of games can remain just as profitable, ensuring their survival. The only difference is future ones, okay, future. Now, again, future usually denotes things after with an end-of-life build, one, it's not difficult to have done if you have it from the design phase. So yeah, clearly they're just saying, listen, next time you make another one of your Ubisoft releases, just make sure that you have it planned from the beginning that once you remove the bitch to get it right. Why? I don't understand. Maybe it's just losing access to control that really drives Ubisoft to like this end, to like this just complete like pain where, again, once they realize that people have to be 100% connected to their service, meaning just be them with constant advertisings, microtransactions, the scummiest business practices known to man. That's, I guess, what really scares them. And mind you, this is the same company, okay, that has some of the dumbest plans that you've ever seen in gaming. They're always to like hyper. For instance, you may not remember, but I do. Ubisoft Quartz. This came out literally a couple of years ago. It was an entire plan for them to invest and put like NFTs into like video games, right? Or like find ways to put NFT collectibles. And I don't know what brainchild worked on this. A lot of people said the son of the CEO who kind of thought about this, who for Ubisoft. So I don't know how. What did they do? Whatever the heck it is. The one game just like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and aside from when they first dropped this shit, nothing else sort of came out. Nobody no other form of NFTs got released. This stuff just being silently released and killed. And I don't know why they did it. Got out of this just bad press. And they knew to an extent that they would just they thought that takes off, we can just be the one marketplace that takes a cut of every sections, and you can tell they didn't give it up. They weren't willing to put it in games that probably could have made Rainbow Six that are, by the way, the one truly successful for it. Even that they're trying to slowly solve, which was really hilarious. Was apparently Ubisoft said something like microtransactions make the player experience more fun. So, like stop killing game stuff. And this is such a weird like EA surprise red where again, not many gamers really give a shit about the microtransaction. Okay, now I'm somebody that actions in video games that I've played. Like for instance, with Rainbow Six Siege, I put of hours into that game, and given that a lot of the content is basically free, sometimes I do feel it's worth watching games by actually buying like a skin or two every once in a while. But again, to go into what
Number 1, joy lag syndrome. Do you ever get this feeling where everything suddenly gets boring? You open your favorite game, you're at the loading screen, and suddenly you get a homework assignment, or you play the ones that used to make your heart race with excitement. And now they just sit there like dusty relics from a past life you can't quite remember. This is called joy lag, a strange emotional time lag where the idea of joy. But now it feels like you're watching memories play, disconnected and dimmed out. When you're constantly under pressure, your brain starts prioritizing energy, shutting down or dulling the systems that once gave you bursts of joy, focus, or inspiration. This leads to release cortisol, your main stress hormone. Over time, too much cortisol dulls the brain's sensitivity to dopamine, the chemical responsible for motivation and reward. This means even when you do something that should feel good, the signal doesn't land. Additionally, your prefrontal cortex, part of the brain responsible for focus, planning, and emotional regulation, starts to shrink in response to prolonged stress. Meanwhile, the amygdala, which processes fear and threat, becomes more reactive. This results in your brain prioritizing survival over joy, skating for danger. Studies show that chronic burnout literally alters your brain's reward pathways, making pleasure feel like a foreign concept. It assumes you're in crisis mode and that joy is a distraction, not a necessity. So even when your environment changes, your brain may stay in that protective crouch, unable to recognize fun. That is why recovering from burnout isn't just about resting. It's about retraining your brain to trust having fun again. So when everything suddenly starts feeling like a chore, that's not a personality change. Be easy to yourself, get out and touch grass. Number 2, micro rage quakes. Ever snap at your phone if I took one more second to load, or the elevator door closes to reach it, you're genuinely furious. This is what I call rage quakes. Those disproportionate bursts of anger triggered by annoyances. You're afraid, pushing your nervous system into a hypersensitive, bringing emotion magnified by exhaustion. Dr. Rob, stress physiologist, biology shows that chronic stress keeps your sympathetic nervous in state of action. The flight response becomes hypersensitive detector that goes open burnt toast. Here's the science behind it. When you're chronically stressed, the alarm system becomes hyperactive while your prefrontal cortex, the rational CEO, goes offline. So minor irritations that your well-rested brain would filter out now feel like genuine threats. Slow Wi-Fi stops being an inconvenience to becoming the final straw on a nervous system that's been holding it together with duct tape and caffeine. The really insidious part is that you start feeling guilty about your reactions. You question why you were so angry about something so small, but you're not actually angry about the slow internet. You're angry about the 47 other things that have been slowly overwhelming your system over time. The elevator door is just the unfortunate trigger that happened to be there when your stress bucket finally overflowed. So if you ever find yourself having outsized reactions to minor annoyances, your nervous system is sending you a very clear signal that your stress load has exceeded your capacity, and it's time to get something of your to-do list. Number 3, patrol. Do you remember when you're sitting at your desk with a crazy day? Instead of logging into work, you keep checking your phone 15 times in a row, even though you know nothing new has come in. Email, Slack, and check random apps just to give your brain notification control. Burnout-induced hypervigilance. Here's what happens. When you're burned out, your brain begins craving micro hits of control and novelty to offset the overwhelm. Each time you check your phone, even knowing there's nothing new, you're trying to give your brain a tiny taste of predictability. Just a pause. Okay. It calls this intermittent reinforcement neural loop for inconsistent rewards, like the occasional dopamine ping from a new notification. Make us keep checking just in case. Under stress, this loop gets hijacked. Your prefrontal cortex, responsible for focus and regulation, is exhausted. Meanwhile, your limbic system, which governs emotional reactivity, is in overdrive. Unfortunately, the more you give into these digital reflexes, the harder it becomes to re-engage with deep focus. Your mind stays in a constant state of flight, toggling from one app to the next like it's scanning for emotional. Dr. Matthew cognitive neuroscience shows that when we are chronically brain develop threat detecting, we start seeing the problems everywhere. Even in neutral situations, even silence feels threatening. Simply control your phone. Your brain's misguided way of trying to feel control, afraid to face the mountain workload ahead of you. Number 4, decision desert. Ever long that the waiter starts giving you concerned looks, or spend 20 minutes debating whether to wear the blue shirt or the slightly different color. It is like your brain has hit a wall, and the simplest choices feel impossibly heavy. You get stuck in analysis paralysis over things that shouldn't matter. This is called decision fatigue, a silent burnout symptom where your mental battery is so drained that even basic choices feel like heavy lifts. Every option feels equally overwhelming because your brain decision-making hub is running on fumes. Here's what happens. When your brain is stuck in a low-power survival mode, it avoids personal commitment as a way of self-preservation. Making the wrong decision feels dangerous, so your brain freezes instead. Your sense of personal agency is so drained that you get stuck in reactive mode, responding to other people's urgencies and meeting other external deadlines, losing touch with your own preferences. You become so accustomed to the external direction that the internal direction feels foreign. The longer you're in this loop, the more frustrated you become with yourself, which ironically adds more stress, making the next decision even harder. Dr. Albert Bandura's research on self-efficacy shows that people who feel chronically overwhelmed often develop learned helplessness around decision-making. Your brain starts treating every choice as potentially wrong, so it freezes rather than risks making a mistake. The really cruel part is that while you're standing there paralyzed by decisions, you're internally criticizing yourself for being so indecisive. Number 5, weekend zombie mode. Saturday morning arrives and you have no plans, no obligations. This should feel like freedom. Instead, you collapse onto the couch and enter what can only be described as a hibernation state. You're not really sleeping. Either are you really awake or just existing. Hours pass, you accomplish nothing. And somehow you feel more tired than when you started. This is weekend inertia. The feeling when you have free time, no plans, no obligations. But instead of feeling refreshed or energized, you feel sluggish and mentally stuck, a state of semi-conscious hibernation. Here's the science behind it. constantly solving, reacting, fixing issues without adequate downtime, it temporarily forgets how to tweak and treat it to function in a permanent state of cortisol-fueled urgency, so much that when the pressure lifts, instead of feeling calm, your body crashes. Dr. Andrew Huberman calls this paradoxical fatigue, where the systems responsible for energy generation, like dopamine and norepinephrine, have been so overused, they flatline the moment you're no longer in a fight or flight scenario. Your brain has no momentum to shift into joy or productivity because it's busy rebooting from the week's emotional wear and tear. The worst part is that Sunday night dread starts creeping in around noon on Saturday. It's like your brain can't even enjoy the present moment because it's already catastrophizing about Monday morning. You're basically just worrying horizontally instead of actually resting. True rest requires your nervous system to downshift from fight or flight mode to rest and digest mode. But when you're burned out, your system is so stuck in overdrive without knowing how to slow down. Alarm snooze relay. Have you ever been so upset to wake up to a point you end up having an alarm snooze relay? And what should be a simple wake up becomes a 10-round boxing match between you and your alarm clock. Each snooze feels like a small victory, just 9 more minutes apiece. But by the time you actually get up, you feel more exhausted than when you went to bed. Your brain, already overwhelmed from carrying invisible mental weight over the days, interprets waking up as the start of another battle. The snooze button becomes a subconscious form of emotional negotiation. You use it to delay, but instead of giving you real rest, these fragmented doses throw you a cycle of interrupted sleep, making you groggier. And here's where it gets even worse. The more guilty you feel about wasting time, which adds another layer of stress to your already overwhelmed system. And that guilt doesn't just stay in the morning. To your day, coloring every task with a sense of lateness. You start off behind and spend the rest on your schedule, your own sense of self-worth. This is comfort in the moment, but it sets the tone for a cycle of shame, fatigue, and inner criticism that makes every moment feel harder than it needs to be. So if the sound of your morning alarm triggers a sense of dread rather than readiness, you've probably been on a streak of go mode and you need rest.
You were saying that we all like to influence. We like to before you ever start influencing or persuading, you have to gather information. You have to collect information. You have to gather. So often, social media and traditions think that you have to skip to the action, and the action is influencing or persuading somebody. Perfect example is all the people out there who try to teach you lie detection. You have to skip to the part where you can quickly determine if they're lying because you're watching the micro expressions in their face. Really good friend of mine, Chase Hughes, focuses a lot on expressions, picking up these nuances in person. He's 100%. It can be done, but you have to come around the person in order to be able to extract raw expressions of nuances. Chase knows how to do that because he's used to teaching people in a world of interrogation. When you're a human intelligence, interrogating people, you're having a casual conversation on the street. The conversation with somebody as a sales lead or in the corporate office, in an interrogation experience, right? So you can ramp up the pressure and see how it changes them. But in a social setting, you can't do that. So in human intelligence, what we're always looking for is gathering information to create what we call a baseline. What normal for that person, messing with different type of stimuli, make them change their baseline. So let's take the example of guys fear going to come online. We all think that we have to do, but media, traditional media, social media have made us feel confident guys that goes right up and has a pickup line. Fuck no. You think there's a pretty girl, watch her for a few minutes. They're with friends.
she act? Does she look nervous? Does she look happy? Is she drinking orange juice? Like, what's going on? Observe for a little while, right? You'll see what makes a girl self-conscious.
Why are you looking for what she's self-conscious about?
Because if you know what she's self-conscious about, then you know not to approach her on that thing, right? If you see her like constantly fixing her pants, then you understand she's probably in uncomfortable pants. She's probably self-conscious about whatever it was that made her wear these tight pants. So don't compliment her legs, her butt, her ass. Don't do anything like that. Compliment her on the thing that's natural. She doesn't mess with her hair, right? She doesn't mess with her jewelry. She doesn't check her face for makeup. Compliment her on something like that. Or skip her altogether and talk about her friend. Talk about the bartender. Right? He doesn't have to be somebody and just be like, I've been waiting a while for a drink. How did you get that so fast? Yeah, right. But that starts a conversation.
Patterns about too.
And what's so important is that in the world of intelligence, in the world of information gathering, it's a constant game of who has more information. So don't throw yourself into a conversation or a negotiation or a sales pitch unless you have superior information. If you try to go head to head, then it's a race of who collects the most information in the moment.
Is there a way to, like you said, there's a lot of observation happening. Is there a way to sort of, or if we were to pinpoint or a certain thing for us to really go in and look for, like what I guess what I'm asking is what really drives people at a very unconscious level? If we were to look for certain habits, things. So I know significance for people is a big driver. In some people it's a lot higher, in some not as high as others. So me personally, like sometimes if I'm wanting to influence someone, I will look for how can I attach this thing to how it's going to make them more significant in the thing that they actually want. Or I'll look for what's their actually value. If someone values family, attaching how it's going to benefit their family is going to influence them a lot more than if I'll say it's going to attract them or care about. So that's my understanding of it. What are you kind of looking for? Like, well, is there strong internal motivators that we need to sort of be looking for to attach the thing we want to influence them on back to?
You said the word several times during your description, right? It's really all about benefit to the target. What benefits them? And that sometimes that benefit is a value. Sometimes that benefit is very transient or temporary. Sometimes that benefit is just an escape, right? But if you observe with an eye towards what benefits the other person, that's really getting close to the place where you can influence your speaking. So if you're talking to somebody, car salesman, somebody wants to do a car dealership, and they're asking about a car. Well, are they interested in your car? No. They're interested in the benefit to transportation. You don't know what that benefit is. Are they looking for transportation that makes them look and sound cool? Are they looking for transportation that makes it comfortable for their kids? Are they looking for transportation that makes it safe for their spouse? Are they looking for transportation that's cost effective? You have no idea. But what you do know is that they came to a car dealership because they're looking for the benefits of transportation. You don't know whether they're there because they like that brand of car or because they don't have a car and that was the closest dealership they could walk to. Too often, people leap to an assumption and they oversimplify the benefit of the target or of the other person or of the market, call it, right? You actually don't know their benefit unless you take the time to observe. Again, baseline. You got to gather information. One of the best ways to gather information is just what you're doing right now. You just sit there quietly. If you sit there quietly, people talk. And guess what every word is? Every word is information. And paying attention with an eye towards finding the benefits about you will see how
I have noticed that. Actually, like I'm super excited. I have they just
understand at any moment, what's the age, day, emotional status,
about discovering which one we're using for
is preeminent. Three also. So, for example, in this moment that you're talking, you can be motivated by rewards. You can be motivated by ideology. You can be motivated by conversion. You can be motivated by ego. But they're not all equal to you right now in this moment. In this studio, in this day, in this movie. It takes a bit of observation to understand which one motivates you so that we can have the highest chance of success.
the determining. So my understanding is the reward, obviously, ideology, our beliefs, our internal idea of the world. Is that correct?
Yep.
Coercion. So if you don't do this, then I'll lock you up. Okay. So of course, I'm assuming that it'll work. There's a saying I know. It's like someone can convince they still have the same opinion. I'm assuming that's the one you play. Don't ego so significant. Play the ego close.
People misunderstand the term ego with egotistical. We all have an ego. We all have a will to view us as on me. Biden and Trump have an ego. The difference, some people are egotistical, which means they must be smart. We've got to separate the two terms. If you can meet somebody and validate or encourage or give them the benefit of expanding their ego, they will be able to persuade and influence because they feel validating what they value, which is being self-sacrificing or being a leader or being patient or being a good mom. Like, we all have egos. And if I ask you to do something that's in line with your ego and I validate your ego along the way, you're more likely to be persuaded to do what I want you to do.
But another way that, like, say, like their identity, they believe to be true about themselves.
Fair.
Like if somebody was to value impact, or love or some service or something like that, would, like, let's say if I was going to sit and try to influence this person to do a business deal with me, be like, hey, by doing this, we can create a massive impact in the world, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yep, you're feeding their ego because for them, it's the world. And if one of their primary struggles or frustrations is that they're not in an impactful position, then you're inviting them to join your cause and contribute their passion to your impact. And now all of a sudden they say yes.
Are one of these higher than the other?
The highest of all four is ideology. And that's why you see so much marketing, so much advertising, so much propaganda centered around ideology. Like, I mean, if you think about religion's a fantastic one. When you talk to somebody who is religious, you can get them to do basically anything in the name of their religion. There are people who kill in the name of their religion, right? There are people who leave families and stop talking to their moms and dads and brothers and sisters in the name of religion. That's how strong ideology is. Here in the United States, if the national anthem plays, guess what people do?
Yes.
They stand up. Even if it doesn't make sense, right? If the national anthem started playing right now, I would feel compelled to, like, push the microphone aside, stand up, and put my hand over my heart. It makes no logical sense. It's how strong ideology is, right? And what's super powerful about ideology is nobody second guesses it. Don't guess their religion. Nationalists don't second guess their nationalism. Dads don't second guess being dads. Sons don't second guess loving their parents. Like, this is our ideology. It's what we do. It's insane because and when you're outside of that ideology, that's when you can see it. So any husband who's watched their wife do something irrational and nonsensical because she feels obligated to her parents or she owes her parents her religion, like, you sit there and you're like, why would you do that? And of course, the spouse responds defensively. It's my mom, it's my dad, it's my church. We see it from the
outside, but you don't see it from the inside.
So if I'm just met you and I'm trying to sell you, let's just use sales for example. What specifically, or how do I determine your ideology?
So a lot of it has to do with listening and being, like you said, and then you have to use a technique called this, by which you collect targeted information by asking adjacent questions. So, for example, if I want to know how old you are, if I say, Morgan, how old are you? That is a direct question. You may not like that direct question. It might make you feel uncomfortable. But if I ask you something like, what year did you graduate college? Now I can do some very, very simple math and come up with a relatively close estimate of how old you are, right? Now, are there always exceptions? Yes, there are always the people who went to college and graduated at 24. But for the rest of us, the vast majority of us graduate university at about 22, right? So we can ask those questions. That's adjacent to what we're trying to ask, but we get the core information, right? Another way that you can observe somebody's ideology is just by watching their physical position, their environment, right? If you come into my work office, you're going to see pictures of my kids. You're going to see pictures of my school. You're going to see some of my awards at the CIA. You're going to see the things I value without ever even talking to me, because I took the effort and the time to put those things in my office. I want to be reminded of those things every day. You know what you want? My 8th report card that said I got a D in math. I don't want to remember. There's so much that you can pick up from the environment and from elicitation, asking adjacent questions of a person. As long as you're listening with an ear towards, I'm not here to have a conversation, I'm here to gather information. You'd be amazed how much more aware you are of the details you gather.
From me, we talked a bit before we started. We talked about a lot of things. What have you already gathered in terms of ideology, things that could play to my ego?
So it's a great question. There's a number of things to keep in mind, right? So there's a difference between assessment and assumptions. So I'm not assuming that any of these things are true. I am assessing, meaning for the data that I have had collected so far, I will assess that these things are probably true. So one, you like shortcuts. I'm assessing that you don't like to do a bunch of hard work. You like shortcuts. And then if you have to do hard work, or if hard work is going to give you a massive benefit, then you will do it, but you're still thinking in the back of your head, how can I make this easier? How can I make this faster?
What gave that one away? I thought you were going to say something about, you're a risk taker, you skydive, I would have thought these would have been things. That's so interesting. Where did that one come from?
My first question is it accurate or is it inaccurate?
That's pretty damn accurate because I definitely am. Like I will joke with my team. I'm like, don't expect me to do a lot. Like I am a lazy person. That's also why I'm where I am in my life, because Bill Gates says that I ask lazy people to do jobs because they'll find the easiest way there. So I do naturally. I'm like, what you said was two things. You said was so true. I will look for shortcuts, but not in a way to jeopardize, not to do a bad job. But I'm going to go, what's the best, most efficient way to get this done, where it's done is better than perfect. Mm-hmm. And if it's putting in the effort, it's going to be very rewarding and it's impactful, then I'm all there. That's fine.
So I picked that assessment up. So let me tell you why I didn't talk about being risk tolerant. You did mention skydiving, but you only really mentioned it once, and you didn't have multiple examples of where you take big risks. I know you're an entrepreneur, but I only had one data point to talk about your risk tolerance. Where I did get the sense that you had shortcuts was because I've been listening to you talk about your sales strategy, about your live event strategy, about your pricing strategy, about how you maximize the people who attend your events. In every one of those instances, what you're doing is you're finding a way to make it as simple and easy as possible with the largest probability of success on the back end. You're not trying to make things perfect. Like, you're not telling me about how much effort you put into designing the menu just right. You're not telling me about how proud you are of your branding and your color patterns on you. Like, some people will tell you those things, right? What you're talking about instead is like, here's how I fill the room. Here's what my metrics are. Here's my conversion rates. Here's my price points. Here's what I know about the second step and the third step of the sales process. And that is a very pragmatic, efficient process.
I love it.
Oh, fish.
Gilbert, and she said her was not learning to tell the truth sooner, not to other people. Thinking about that because I've done this. I prioritize someone else's comfort over my own truth and the cost. In this video, we'll talk about the truths we avoid telling ourselves and what can happen when we finally say them out loud. Not in a harsh way, but in a kind way. So here's my truth, and maybe it'll help you face yours too. Sometimes the hardest person to be honest with is ourselves. We've learned that honesty can feel unsafe. If we grew up pleasing others to stay connected, or if we hid our needs to avoid conflict, we may tell ourselves things like, I'm fine, or it's not that bad, or this is just how I am. Not because they're true, but because they help us cope. People pleasing and that's okay. Or I don't think this job or this relationship of me is working anymore. Being honest is about clarity. Clarity is what gives us the power to heal, to grow. Actually, pause this video right now. Think about one truth that you've been avoiding. What comes up first? And keep that in mind as I share what happened when I finally faced mine. I grew up believing that being useful made me lovable. And if I or not, just to keep things secret for personal or political reasons. Is there a specific kind of hiding you're curious about?
About human behavior.
Human behavior is definitely complex. We're driven by a mix of conscious and unconscious motivations. Sometimes we might hide our true feelings to avoid conflict or protect ourselves. Other times, we might hide our intentions to gain an advantage. Are you thinking about a specific situation? Just worked hard enough, took care of everyone else, then maybe I'd finally feel like I'm enough. So I became incredibly productive. I filled every one of the tasks and to-dos. Probably looked like I had it all together, but inside, exhausted.
that pain. I didn't believe I was worthy. I'm starting to realize worth isn't earned. You don't have to prove your value to be cared for. You have to be useful to deserve love. Changing my mindset is still a work in progress. Some days, rest, slowing down feels like failure. I'm still learning that just being is enough, that I'm enough. Here are some warning signs. Physical symptoms. That knot in your stomach when you think about work. The tension in your shoulders during certain conversations. Came out of nowhere. My body was screaming the truth I wasn't ready to hear. Recurring, the same worry that keeps circling back. Replay over and over and over. Don't leave alone. When your brain keeps returning to something because there's a truth there you haven't acknowledged. Emotion, you feel distant from your feelings, or when you catch yourself, I'm fine, automatically. Sometimes avoiding truth means avoiding feelings altogether. Relationship patterns. Do you find yourself having the same argument with different people? Are you always the one who gives? You're performing rather than. These patterns often point to truth. The truth I was avoiding showed up. I was exhausted, anxious, felt like I was never enough, no matter how much I did. If any of these warning signs resonate with you, share which one hits closest to home in the comments. You're not alone in this. Trust me. I had a patient come into my office years ago saying everything was fine with her marriage. For weeks and weeks, she'd talk about work stress, her kids' schedules, anything but her relationship. When I gently asked about her husband, she'd say, "Oh, he's great. We're fine." But I noticed that she'd shift in her chair, look away. Then one day, I asked her to describe a typical evening at home. She paused for a long moment, and I could see something shift in her face. She said, "Well, we don't really talk much anymore. We just exist in the same space." Over the next few sessions, more truth started emerging. "I don't feel heard," she finally whispered. "I haven't felt heard in years. But I keep telling myself it's just a phase." We tell ourselves it's not that serious or things will get better on their own. But relationship truths rarely resolve themselves. Career truths hit different because they challenge our identity. I had a patient who sat in my office for 3 sessions, insisting that he just needed, better work-life balance. Finally, he looked at me and said, "I hate my job. I've hated it for years." We silence these truths with, "I should be grateful," or "it's too late to change." But what if it actually isn't too late? Another patient of mine spent months talking about anxiety before saying, "I just don't want to become my mother." Dangerous because family is supposed to be unconditional, right? Love isn't betrayal, it's honesty. Health truths, both physical and mental, get pushed down because they feel too big. "I think I need therapy," or "I'm drinking too much," or "I'm not taking care of myself." We tell ourselves everybody struggles, or "I can handle this on my own." But what if we handle it alone? Now you might be thinking, okay, myself in all of these stories, and I'm ready to face my truth. But before I give you the toolkit that changed everything for me, I need to tell you about the biggest mistake people make when they start this process, because it nearly derailed my own healing journey. People think that once they acknowledge their truth, they have to blow up their entire life immediately. But that's not how healing works. What I didn't realize for years was when we're not honest with ourselves, honest with anyone else, it creates this ripple effect that touches every relationship. When I was stuck in that people pleasing pattern, I was saying yes when I meant no. I was agreeing when I actually just fine when I was falling apart. Not making sense off. They just couldn't. When you're not authentic, your relationships become based on a version of you that doesn't. I was so afraid of disappointing people that I became something to be around. I was present, but not really there. Available, but not genuine. Helpful, but not honest. The paradox that blew my mind, we think we're protecting others by not speaking our truth, but we're actually being dishonest to them. We're making decisions for them about what they can and cannot handle. We're robbing them of the chance to know and love the real us. When I finally started being honest, my relationships got stronger, not weaker. Some people left, sure, and that did hurt, but the people who stayed, they got to know me, the real me. Here's something powerful you could try. Think of one relationship where you're not being completely authentic. What would change if you brought more truth into that relationship? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear it. So how do we add the truth to ourselves? The answer isn't to bulldoze yourself or others with harsh confessions. In fact, the best place to start is quietly, gently, with curiosity, not criticism. So grab your phone and open it up to your notes app. I want you to try something with me. Ask yourself, what do I know deep down but struggle to admit? Maybe you're pretending that you're fine. Maybe you're pretending that a relationship still works, that a job is still fulfilling, that you're not hurt by something that happened years ago. You could also approach this by asking, what am I aware of in my but not ready to own? Write down whatever comes up. Don't judge it. Don't fix it. Witness it. You don't have to say it out loud to anyone else. Action today. Just witness the truth on paper. Or this is where journaling becomes powerful. It gives your thoughts and feelings a safe place to land. It's emotional. Go slow. You dust off the layers and start to see what's really there under the rubble. Therapy can also be a transformative space for this, especially if the truth you're avoiding is tangled up in shame or trauma. Sometimes we need another person to help hold the mirror gently, without judgment. Sometimes therapy is simply sitting in the discomfort of honesty and actually letting yourself feel the sting of, I'm not okay. It hurts, but once you name the truth, something amazing happens. It loses a bit of power over you and stops lurking in the background. The truth starts becoming something you change, heal. It doesn't always feel good at first, of course, but it does set you free. And that's where real growth starts. Let me give you 7 specific tools that have helped me and my patients start this process. Number 1, the if I'm being honest prompt. Start sentences with this phrase in your journal. If I'm being honest, I'm not happy. If I'm being honest, I'm scared. It's like a gentle bypass for your usual defenses. Number 2, the body scan check-in. Before making decisions, pause. In your body. Tightness means pay attention. Usually means alignment. Your body doesn't lie. It just speaks a different language. Number 3, the what would I tell my best friend question. We're often kinder and more honest with others than ourselves. If your best friend was in your exact situation, what would you tell them? Now give yourself that same compassion. Number 4, the 10-10-10 rule. How will you feel about this decision in 10 minutes? 10 months? This helps you see past immediate long-term truth. Number 5, I actually like that restaurant. I'm tired and I need to go home. Build your truth-telling muscle. Get stronger practice. Number 6, the support. Find someone safe to practice with. Sometimes truth out loud to someone else before we can fully own it. And number 7, what if the truth feels too scary? Start smaller. Instead of, I want to leave my marriage, try, I'm not happy in my marriage. Instead of, I hate my job, try, I'm not fulfilled at work. The truth doesn't have to be dramatic to be powerful. Remember, you don't have to act on every truth immediately. Sometimes just acknowledging it is enough to start the healing process. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's that telling the truth, especially to you, doesn't have to be some dramatic, life-altering event. It can start with a sentence that begins with, if I was being honest. You don't have to act on the truth right away, but acknowledging it, saying it, even if it's just to yourself, that's a kind of freedom no one can give you but you. When we stop running from our truth, we start feeling at home with ourselves. And that's when everything begins to shift. Suddenly, we're not carrying so much weight. I know it's hard, and I know there are risks, but there's also relief. There's space to become who you are, not who you've been pretending to be. So maybe today, just ask yourself, what truth have I been avoiding? And what might change if I stopped hiding from it? Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video gave you permission to be more honest with yourself. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next time. I saw this clip.
So this video is probably titled something like things a manipulator will do when you expose them. Honestly, I would have preferred to use the word abuser, but YouTube's weird about certain words, especially being used as a title. I do think the two are mainly interchangeable because pathological manipulators are typically abusive and abusers are typically manipulative. Some people would use the word narcissist, and while certainly many narcissists are manipulative and many of them can be abusive, I think when people say the word narcissist, what they're really referring to is an abuser, right? Like you don't have to have narcissistic personality disorder or narcissistic traits necessarily to use the tactics that I'm about to tell you about. So that's what I mean by manipulator. But then let me also clarify what I mean by exposing a manipulator. Sure, it could refer to like so denying the behavior could be